poets, writers, philosophers, thinkers, academicians from world over. Thank you so much indeed for joining in here today. Today we've gathered to celebrate together the inauguration of International Academy of Ethics, which is a brainchild of the Azad Foundation India. Now, this is a dream project of our founder president, Dr. JERNAIL Singh Anand, but it is also the foundation of a collective idea put together by a bevy of scholars, thinkers, poets, writers, all people who are concerned for themselves as well as for the society and humanity at large. This is in order to address a matter of utmost significance, which is the necessity of ethics in our rapidly evolving world. In an era which is dominated by technological advancements, global interconnections, and complex challenges that we witness in our daily lives, ethics serve as the moral compass which guides our actions, decisions, and interactions. They shape the core of every society and allow us to navigate the complexities in this modern age that we are living with integrity, with fairness and compassion. Now, we've heard many thinkers, many scientists like Albert Einstein even say and advocate that ethical axioms are found and tested not very differently from axioms of science. So it has to be taken as seriously as science. He says, truth is what stands the test of experience. Now, these words actually assert and remind that ethics are actually not abstractions or abstract concepts that generally books talk about, but they're practical principles that should be tested and applied in our daily lives and our society. So we are here together today because we face numerous challenges that demand ethical considerations. So there was the need of the day that from environmental degradation, from the social injustices, from the economic inequalities to the ethical implications of the emerging technologies today like AI, we find ourselves at a critical juncture in a trap where our ethical choices can shape the future of the planet. They can actually take in any direction, positive or negative. So we need to talk about it really, really seriously. Now, after we talk of the challenges, it is our duty to talk of the resolution also, the remedies also. So here, therefore, we all join hands to look at this practically and foster a society which is built on integrity, compassion, and justice, which we all are witnessing is lacking. We need to work towards it. So together, we have got together today, let us create a world where ethical values are not just cherished, but also lived every day. We ensure a brighter, more equitable future for all of us as well as the generations to come. So this is the dream, this is the ideal we hold while we inaugurate our International Academy of Ethics. So I won't take much time, but because we have a galaxy of stars today who could talk at length on it, so let me pass over the stage to introduce the entire concept to our Chief Coordinator of the Academy. I invite the Chief Coordinator of Academy of Ethics, Dr. Molly Joseph. Dr. Molly Joseph is an acclaimed poet, a translator, well known for her travelogues and stories for children, an author of 17 books, widely anthologized poet, a reputed member of jury in several contests, and a widely quoted critic of English literature, one of my favorites. Dr. Molly, I invite you for a note of introduction of this function. Dr. Molly Joseph.
Thank you, dear Parneet, for your kind introduction. Esteemed literati, The august assembly of ethically oriented thinkers, writers, philosophers, and poets. Greetings from Kerala, India. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to this hall, the inauguration of International Academy of Ethics, the first of its kind in its uniqueness. Today, we are marking a milestone in human thought and its efficient execution. Let me start with a quote from our dear poet, Khalil Gibran. The timeless in you is aware of life's timelessness and knows that yesterday is but today's memory and tomorrow is today's dreams. Yes, here we are in these shifting shores of the present, arresting the decadence, investing it with value-based insights. High time we did it in unison. As Albert Camus put it, each generation doubtlessly feels called upon to reform the world. Mine knows that it will not reform it, but its task perhaps even greater. It consists in preventing the world from destroying itself. I believe, dear friends, as writers, thinkers, movers of 21st century, it is incumbent in us, on us. We grow soulful only when we address this. Let me focus on just 3 strands of thoughts. 1, the contemporary scenario. Our so-called progress, like a car careening out of control. The new world corporates hijacking the indigenous, widening the have-not divide, wars, pandemic, fast depletion of resources, what not? What helped us to grow as a community at the Homo sapiens stage itself, from Homo to Homo Deus or whatsoever? It was a community togetherness. But where is it gone now? Here, togetherness and unity storm to winds. In our greed-driven days of out beating each other, how we have severed off the wisdom of the ages, which were poured on us through right spiritual credos and pathways of the past. Our education system, sorry to say, has failed to stem in the rot. With lopsided vision, how it turns out professional with no ethical mooring. The average man is filled with apathy, insensitivity. Look at the recent instance where an innocent girl is stabbed and hacked to death in public. People just pass by as if it is no concern of theirs, taking things for granted. Obsession with one's own comfort zone, one's own cocoon. Isn't it one major ailment of mindscapes these days? Effort should be made to stir human consciousness into a kind of empathy and sensitivity, instilling right ethical awareness. It is a need for the day. If we don't do it now, who else is going to do it? My second point. By inculcating the kind of a credo where we can go in into the ethical aspects, not only theoretically, as Parneet put it, practically, we should look at how we can achieve it, especially in this contemporary scenario, where, as Parneet put it, AI is devouring us. And technology is taking jump frogging the kind of leaps. But while I was going through the recent journals, I came across the scenario where I find sane minds, even among the scientists, are working on a new kind of friendly AI. There are efforts going on to build a new microbe-rich soil and environment for better cultivation. And then a new eco-awareness being done. That too by the reputed, the so-called scientists who are working for common welfare. So we can't simply wave off the recent developments in science as something totally desired. What we need is the kind of inspiring initiative taken to inculcate ethical moorings in young minds. So may I come to my second point. By initiating this, let us stretch out in a wide gamut. All sectors, service, hospitality, judiciary, teaching, police and law and order, education, literature, whatnot. I know the respected, reputed people who have gathered here have come with rich insights. Let us pull it together, taking each aspect, not only holistic, but even specific relating to each sector. Yes. So after having said this, time is fast exceeding. Let me come to my third point. Dears, world is in no dearth of theories and ideas. Let the focal point of a university focus on the kind of implementality of it. The insights that we are gathering today, let us put it together into practical kind of case studies and histories which can emulate and inspire the learners in the form of internship when we are constituting the right kind of syllabi. Socially reach out things. Already it is part of the syllabi of some particular universities. And especially I think others like RAWLE James would throw limelight how social service becomes a part of the syllabi of many universities there. Into our university, let this fresh air breathe in other than theory and academics and making automatons of learning. I have to congratulate Dr. JERNAIL Singh, who with his 3 books, trilogies, very seminal books, was highlighting this kind of, what do you call, civilizational stuff is, where man gets dehumanized like anything, the Lestonian philosophy. But the third book was highlighting the kind of positivity wherein we can build a Jernopia where each one has a space and there is justice and mercy and quality of living. Yes, sir, your great vision has empowered us to join you as a flock because we feel it's our duty to become soulful people of the day. It's our duty to side you and then energize you in this wonderful activity, humanitarian activity. Yes. Again, I go back before I wind up to Gibran. Let us treat the past with remembrance and reverence and warp out the present. And of course, the future with dreams and hopes, instilling them into the coming generation. Thank you, dears. Thank you so much for patiently listening to me. Wish you all a very fruitful session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Molly Joseph. Thank you so much. Yes, Dr. Molly, it's time to transform our sensitivity into an action for change in society. Thank you. I now invite our president, Dr. JERNAIL Singh Anand, for his Foundation Day speech. We have known Dr. Anand not just as a multilingual poet, writer, critic, and a scholar with a huge volume of literary work, but also as a promoter of art, culture, and literature to the best of his capacity. We all know about his prolific writing and also his organizational skills through the conferences and online events that are dedicated to poetry and humanity. So after the success of Philosophic Poetica, Galaxy Foundation, and Azad Foundation, here is yet another noble institution planned by Dr. Anand under the auspices of Azad Foundation, the Academy of Ethics, which aims to sensitize the world around with the fading ethical values. To elaborate on the architecture of the International Academy of Ethics, I invite our founder president, Dr. Anand, for the Foundation Day speech. Sir.
Thank you, Dr. PARNEET. So nice of you for this kind introduction. Dear friends, respected fellows, world ambassadors, members of the board of directors, the board of studies, world ambassadors, associate members, and distinguished scholars on the consortium, and all those who have joined us out of love for a better world. I welcome you all to the inaugural function of the International Academy of Ethics and congratulate you for your kind presence while we are celebrating its Foundation Day. We have today among us great scholars from the world, masters of the word, I would say, towering literary figures who have expressed their faith in our passionate endeavor, starting with Dr. HERMAN, SEKULIC, who is the Vice President of the Academy, Dr. BASUDEB Chakraborti is our Chief Guest, Dr. RAWLE James, he is the keynote speaker from Canada, Dr. SWARAJ, the noted scholar from India. So they will be expressing their views on ethics along with international father figures of literature like Dr. ANANTA, GIRI, Dr. Harish Narang, Arindam Roy, Regina Resta, ISTVAN, TURCZI, and so on. We have a long list. The idea of the International Academy of Ethics has its basis in the idea of University of Ethics, which is the cherished dream of Azad Foundation, a registered body with Government of India. We have felt all along that the world we are living in is our own making. If the world is bad, who is responsible for that? And if it is defective, where is the problem? Why there is so much crime in the world? We feel when we miss the rhyme, rhyme scheme. When you miss the rhyme, it gives birth to crime. The world is not only out of joint, it is out of sync also. It is out of rhyme. And in Indian philosophy, those who carry the rhyme, those who are in rhyme are called suras. Suras means angels. And those who lack the rhyme, they are called asuras. A means negative, means asura means monsters, devils, criminals. So you can see what type of a world we have been bequeathed and we are bequeathing it to the coming generations. It is a matter of great concern for us. education as it is being carried out is a poor show, for it concerns itself only with the physical infrastructure, jobs, industries, research, not with creativity. Whereas we have missed on the ethical aspects of education. That is why there is overall degradation in the social system, and we are unable to stem the rot. It is now upon us to deliberate and decide to take the bull by the horn and make changes in the way education is being doled out. We need to revert back and listen to the voices which have become silent in the graves of great men who said so much in favor of morality, goodness, justice, fair play. Men like Plato laid down what type of kings should be there. And you see, look back, we produced Hitlers. Dear friends, we, the authors, poets, scholars, are the best breed of this society. And we are the islands which have escaped being submerged by the foul play of societies. Let us come together. We are the last hope of this humanity. Let us devise a strategy. Let us call upon the school teachers, principals, educationists, and administrators to reorient the educational setup and start every course with the study of ethics. We say A stands for apple. Now there is time to say A stands for Almighty. And it is time to say E stands for elephant. No. We should grow up. E should stand for ethics. On our website, you will find a letter addressed to the educationists with a new ethical alphabet. It is time we come down on the educational system with a determined hand and make people start thinking in terms of right and wrong, good and evil. These things need to be pushed into the minds of the younger generation and even the older generation. Success is a bitch goddess. It has destroyed the moral structure of our society. As awakened citizens of the universe, we may belong to our nations, but we belong to the universe. As awakened citizens of the universe, let us realize the cosmic reality and move towards goodness. Let happiness of all be our passion. Let joy for all be our desired destination. Prosperity for all, goodness, joy. Let these heavenly virtues reign the world. I am thankful to you, friends, all those who have worked hard to working out of this function, all those who will stay to listen to the speakers. Please carry the message everywhere you can. In particular, I am thankful to Dr. Mauli Joseph, Dr. Paneet JAGGI, Professor Mandakini Bhattacharya, RANDHIR GAUTAM, my colleagues who supported us in our ways as members of Board of Directors, Board of Studies, World Ambassador, and on the consortium of distinguished scholars. Most of us who have read the English literature have read Ode to West Wind by Shelley. I feel like Shelley, who invited the west wind to carry the sparks of his faith in the world. I call upon you, all the young and the not so young, to carry this message of International Academy of Ethics, to bring joy to mankind and root out evil and corruption from the society. So in this effort, we have been supported extensively by our media partners, Internal News, Polysphere Press, and Different Truths. And I'm thankful to Sahil Pathan, Michael Guantex, I think he's here today, and Shri Arindam Roy, Eva Linus Petropolio and Shalini Jadev all have helped us a lot in popularizing our message so far. Thank you very much. Parneet ji, please take over and let us go forward with the project.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your ideals and your dream with all of us. We are here with you to see that dream happen true. I now extend an invitation to Dr. Maya Herman SEKULIC. She's the Vice President of Academy of Ethics. She will be talking on ethics and artificial intelligence. Dr. Maya is an author of 23 books in Serbian, English, German, and French, and has been translated in 25 languages. A world traveler, an award-winning poet, novelist, translator with multifarious achievements, and she's a wonderful friend who joins us with a perfect ease and affection that we all admire. We're glad to have you, Maya ma'am. Please join in. We are waiting for your speech. I invite you, Dr. Maya.
Hi, everybody. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to greet everyone. I see many of my friends there, and it's extremely exciting to be vice presiding this beautiful gathering of the very advanced human beings that have concern about ethics today. And ethics is more important subject today than I feel than ever before. Although it's an has ancient roots, and it's central. It has central role in our lives. It seems that it has sort of being put aside for a very long time, and the consequences are horrible, as we can see in our daily life, in politics and in culture. I feel especially strong about it, not because I'm a vice president of this wonderful, unique Academy of Ethics, but because also I spend a lot of time these days in my native city of Belgrade, where a month ago, a little monster, because there's not a word for that, a 13-year-old spoiled brat killed in his secondary school many kids, 8 or 9 kids, and injured many because he liked to practice the shooting with his father. And because maybe some of these girls didn't show enough affection for him. I mean, this is a uniquely horrible crime. And when you look into the background of this child and how privileged he was, then you can see that what was lacking there was exactly that. There was no ethics, no lesson about that. He actually put the plan of this shooting on his desk at home, and nobody paid attention to it. For a month, it was sitting there. I have a feeling that he was maybe asking for someone to react to that. The horror of this is unspeakable. But what happened was that the whole city of Belgrade and the country of Serbia took this as a signal of awakening. And I witnessed yesterday thousands and hundreds of thousands of people of this great city coming out in the streets against violence. And what they meant against violence is not only violence in schools that we are almost getting used to all over the world, starting with United States, where it's very common. But against the violence on television, against the violence in these stupid reality shows, against the violence in everyday speech. And so I'm very proud of that movement. And it's called Belgrade Against Violence. But to go back, this is something that is so important and urgent for me to speak to. So that's what I wanted to touch upon first. And since we are living in this digital universe, the new thing that is happening is, as you all know, is this artificial intelligence. And this is what I wanted to make my major topic, because again, it is very urgent to become aware of this, because we are not sure if there is any real ethics or morality or laws introduced into this realm. And in last decade, it became really a very dominant feature in technology and even in literature. I know that one of these programs downloaded 11,000 novels, and that they predict that by a year 2050, artificial intelligence could write a bestseller. Also, I did some research, and I know that a Spanish inventor downloaded all of the classical Spanish poetry, and made for 17 years worked on artificial intelligence program to see the structure of poetry, how poetry works. He didn't want to show that this program can be better than living and breathing human poet, but was trying to get on the positive side of it. And that means that that he researched the very structure of writing poetry, and he managed to produce poems, and they were even published. I think I don't know the number, something like 90 poems in a book. But in spite of all of this, what was very visible was and evident was that these great poetry lines lacked in emotions, lacked in any feeling of sadness or happiness or love. They were just great words put together. And that is quite promising to see that there is, like in every new invention, a positive side to it. But there is also a big danger if it is used without any ethical codes. So what is important is to establish laws and ethical codes for the use of artificial intelligence. In order to do this, we have to move beyond just engineers and technical people who are dealing with it, and we should all embrace it and get to know it, familiarize ourselves with it, because as Elon Musk said, that is the only way to beat artificial intelligence and to be better of it, and to use it for our means, is to empower ourselves by embracing it the way we all empowered ourselves by embracing internet, digital world that everybody can use, and we all now can connect all over the world in 1 minute, in 1 second. So I would then again emphasize that in order to empower us, we have to become more familiar with as the writers, as artists, as philosophers, as thinkers, as intellectuals, with the artificial intelligence realm, and not let just technical people present it to us. So these are the new challenges that we have to face, and take charge of it. And that's what makes, again, by introducing a whole new realm in our lives, ethics also gets a new role, and gets a really central role in embracing this new technology. So I'm doing research on it, and I will write more about it. This is not the occasion to speak too long. I don't believe in very long, boring speeches. So I will just greet you all again and say that last summer, when I won a Tesla Spirit Award, I wrote a book about Nikola Tesla, and was awarded in the Ethical Society of Philadelphia by Tesla Science Foundation. Then I connected with the Ethical Society in New York, and found out this society was, by the way, established in 1876. And just to mention, some of the members were, along with Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and Mark Twain. So I was invited there for the Humanitas Day in February of this year, and met some of the prominent members, and especially connected with Elizabeth SINGH, who is the president of the Board of Trustees, in order to tell her about establishing this particular academy, and hoping that we will, sorry, it's my other phone, and that we will establish connections with this venerable ethical society in the United States, in New York, and perhaps open, I don't know, one day both Dr. Anand and I are dreaming of a real school or society or university, as some like to call it, a brick and mortar academy somewhere, perhaps in India, perhaps in Belgrade, perhaps everywhere in the world. So these are our dreams for now, but this meeting is real, and I see many beautiful, wonderful faces and minds listening and participating. And I love you all. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Maja. Thanks for that concise yet crisp comment on the current scene, the current issue. Without a question, today we are as if in a competition with the AI poets, thinkers, writers, and people. So according to you, self-empowerment is the key. Thank you so much. I now move on and I request Dr. Rawle I am James from Canada for his keynote address. Joining from Toronto, Canada, Dr. Rawle is the founder of InspiredWordCafe.com, a platform for poets, writers, artists. Coming from the corporate sector with a varied experience in relationships and strategies, he has witnessed his own evolution and transformation as a human being very closely and meticulously. A spiritual mentor, coordinator of various poetry events and podcasts, Dr. Rawle is now dedicated to spreading ethics, art, literature, and joy as well. We wish him luck and I invite him for his keynote address, Ethics, the Essential and Existential Issues. Dr. Rawle, please join in.
In the realm of ethics, standards are the light. Shadows dance in the radiance of your soul. In truth, nature grants equality to all souls. And I was commanded to take up my pen, to weave the essence of life into poetic form. And through bloodshot, weary eyes, I am lost in a haze of scattered emotions. Hope resides within the skeptical judgment. Justice eludes the confines of right or wrong, but a true path lies deep within. With your words brilliant like stars, she implored me to capture the richness of all of life experiences, to feel the chaos within the stillness and stride with balance for soul desire. Within this paradigm of an imagined illusion, the true intentions of our heart illuminate. For life transcends beyond mere survival. Embedded within, virtues is a lighthouse guiding our choices on this intrinsic journey. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my humbled, blessed opportunity to be here today. I'd like to start off by thanking Dr. JERNAIL and Dr. Molly for inviting me to be part of the essential ethical universe, the International Academy of Ethics. And why I'm so pleased and humbled to be here, because I believe ethics is something that we speak, but sometimes forget to practice. So I'm really looking forward to what this organization, who has brought together scholars and noted humans in this think tank, where we can hopefully not just talk ethics, but figure out how to practice it and how to distribute it through the world in helping us to become more just as human beings. Before I get into my talk, I always think it's important you understand who the elephant in the room is, and that would be me. My full name is Rawle James. I was born in a place called Trinidad and Tobago. Tomorrow is actually my birthday, so 63 rotations around the sun. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, spent time in Los Angeles.
Wish you a very long, happy life.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I spent time in Los Angeles, California, Washington, DC, and eventually moved to Toronto, Canada, where I'm back. I also lived in Western Canada for 17 years. But it's in my youth and in my formative adulthood that I spent most of my time in Toronto in the business world. I didn't go to university. Life was my university. And I jumped into the business world. And I've achieved various levels of success within the business world. But it's in the business world I started to understand how this world really works and what power really was. And that how when ethics came up against money, more times than not, ethics lost. Within my own personal life as well in the business world. So that's just a little bit about me. It is true that Europeans have been the focus of criticism when it comes to colonization and the consequences of imperialism. However, it is necessary and essential to recognize that the world we inhabited today is the result of a long lineage of colonizers from various backgrounds with different shadings of pigmentation, political ideologies, and religious views. Each group had its own sense of ethics and systems of belief. By acknowledging this complex tapestry of history, we can strive for a more holistic understanding of the world and its dynamics. It allows us to recognize the interconnectedness of different cultures and the shared responsibility we have in building a more just and equitable future. It also reminds us to critically examine the narrative we encounter, to seek alternative perspective, to listen to the voices that have been marginalized or silenced in the past. Only through a balanced and inclusive understanding can we move forward and towards a more enlightened society. In our world, we indeed encounter a range of experiences encompassing the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. Throughout history, those in positions of power have often understood one fundamental aspect, power itself, while the majority of societies fear power. Unfortunately, it has been common for those with power to take advantage of those who possess limited or no power. This talk aims to take a high-level view of ethics through a different lens, seeking a balanced approach. If we believe in our freedom of choice, it follows logically that we also bear inherent responsibility. I strongly believe that we do not engage in enough dialogue about the potential for ethics to emerge from the harsh experiences and challenges of our humanity. It is within these experiences that resilience is developed and honed and preparing us for future encounters. Ethics can be viewed as the guiding principles that shapes our behaviors, leading us to making choices that contribute to the greater good for all. Ethic urges us to speak the truth, honor our commitments, and assist those in need. It provides a framework underlining our daily lives, helping us to navigate decisions that have positive impact and steering away from unjust outcomes. By adhering to ethical principles, we have the opportunity to make the world a better place through choices that we make. Recognizing the importance of ethics and reflecting on our actions is critical. It allows us to consider the potential consequences of our decisions and encourages us to strive for fairness, compassion, and justice. It is equally important that when we are examining the past, we do not judge the past with our present-day ethics or morals. By embracing a balanced approach to ethics, we can actively contribute to the well-being of individuals, communities, and as a society as a whole. It is through conscious ethical choices that we can collectively shape a better future for ourselves and future generations. Now, what are ethics? To understand ethics, we can start by recognizing its origins. The term ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, which refers to custom or character. Ethics is a branch of philosophy that examines the rightness and the wrongness of human interactions, seeking to determine principles and guidelines for moral conduct. At its core, ethics explores how humans act and what constitutes right conduct. It delves into questions of how to lead a righteous life before our Creator, how to treat our neighbors, and what constitutes a good life. Ethic aims to provide a framework for understanding and evaluating moral choices and actions. Ethics highlights options that best align with what is good, right, and consistent with the values we hold dear. It considers the nature of the things at stake and guides us through the exploration of our values, principles, and purpose. Values inform us of what is good. Principles guide us in determining what is right. And purpose gives life to our values, principles, giving us direction and meaning. Ethical choices are not always easy or enjoyable, but committing to ethics allows us to make decisions that we can stand by, create a life that is genuinely our own, and contributing to a future we desire to be a part of. When we lecture within academic institutions or in the business world, we often aim to provide a comprehensive understanding of ethics. However, it's important to acknowledge that ethics is a complex and multifaceted field, and no single lecture or presentation can cover every aspect of it. Lectures on ethics usually focus on specific topics or frameworks, providing insights into theories, principles, case studies, and practical application. Encouraging ethics is indeed an essential aspect of fostering good character. Good character encompasses traits such as honesty, respect, responsibility, caring, and other virtuous qualities. Teachers and parents often emphasize the importance of character development, but it can sometimes be challenging to grasp its full meaning. Character is not a singular attribute, but rather the culmination of how a person consistently interacts with others and how they treat themselves. We must also examine the worldview of which we conduct our lives. As noted by American economist Thomas Sowell in his book, A Conflict of Vision, which is a book I invite you all to read, it is important that the individual understands if they subscribe to the unconstrained or the constraint vision. In the unconstrained vision, Sowell argues that the unconstrained vision relies heavily on the belief that human nature is essentially good. Those with the unconstrained vision distrust decentralized processes and are impatient with large institutions and systemic processes that constrain human action. They believe there is an ideal solution to every problem and that compromise is never acceptable. Collateral damage is merely the price of moving forward on the road to perfection. Sowell often refers to them as the self-anointed. Ultimately, they believe that man is morally perfect. Because of this, they believe that exists some people who are further along the path of moral development, have overcome self-interest, and are immune to the influence of power, and therefore can act as a surrogate decision maker for the rest of society. In the constrained vision, Sowell argues that the constrained vision relies heavily on the belief that human nature is essentially unchanging and that man is naturally inherently self-interested regardless of his best intention. Those with a constrained vision prefer the systematic processes of the rule of law, the experience of tradition. Compromise is essential because there's no ideal solution, only trade-offs. Those with a constrained vision favor empirical evidence, time-tested structures, and processes over intervention and personal experiences. Ultimately, the constrained vision demands checks and balances and refuses to accept that all people could put aside their innate self-interest. They're both just two visions. One is not right or wrong, just two visions and how individuals see the world. I'm going to tell you a story that is familiar here in the Western world. I'm not sure if it's familiar in your part of the world. It's the story of the two wolves. Now, there's some debate on how this story actually came about, but how I understand it, and how most people understand it, is the story from the indigenous tribe of the Cherokee here in North America, and particularly in America. And the story goes like this. The story of the two wolves. An old Cherokee is teaching his grandson about life. A fight is going on inside me, he said to the boy. It is a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One is evil. He is angry, envious, sorrow, full of regret, greed, arrogant, full of self-pity, guilt, resentment. He continued, the other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, fear. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every person, the grandfather said. The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? The old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed. Now that story itself is good, even with the ending, but that ending is a false ending. The actual ending to the story is, the old Cherokee smiled and replied, if you feed them right, they both win. The story goes on. You see, if you only feed the white wolf, the black wolf will hide in the dark, waiting for me to falter so that it can pounce and get the attention it craves. He will always be angry and will always be fighting with the white wolf. But if I acknowledge him, both he and the white wolf can be satisfied, and we all win. The black wolf has qualities that I need and that the white wolf lacks: tenacity, courage, fearlessness, strength of will, resourcefulness. The white wolf indeed provides compassion, caring, heart, and the ability to value the needs of others over my own. Peace, my son, is what we must all strive for in life. He who has peace inside has everything. He who harbors a storm within his heart and soul has nothing. How you treat the opposing forces within you will ultimately determine how you live life. The reason I love that story, and I love the tradition of the real ending, because it talks about balance. And I mentioned earlier in my talk, we're here to experience all of life, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful of life. That truth has existed, not just for me, but from the moments we came out of the cave. We've been experiencing the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful of life. So the original version of that story highlights the importance of acknowledging and addressing both the positive and negative aspects of our character. By giving attention to both wolves and nurturing the virtues while also recognizing and understanding the negative qualities, we can find a sense of balance. You see, we need both wolves. Feeding only one and starving the other will eventually make both uncontrollable. Caring for both allows them both to feel that you're serving them. There is something greater than them, something good within you, something good within this earth. Feed them both and you will be quiet, and your internal struggle for intention will dissipate. When there's no battle inside, you can then hear the voices of deeper knowledge that will guide you in choosing the right path in every circumstance. It is indeed an important and thought-provoking question. And what is the question? Does ethics exist in the harshness of our life experiences? Whether ethics exist in the harshness of life and within the spectrum of our individual or collective experiences, it is a question, I think, that I challenge this academy, that we dive into, to welcome different voices. As I have mentioned, understanding ethics requires acknowledging the balance and duality that governs our world, including the coexistence of light and dark. When we examine ethics from a broader perspective, it becomes apparent that understanding ethical behavior can be challenging when the available information comes solely from one perspective or one source. This highlights the significance of seeking diverse perspectives and considering different viewpoints to develop a more comprehensive understanding of ethics. In closing, understanding ethics involves engaging in a process of questioning, reflection, and decision-making that leads to a deeper understanding of our choices and their consequences. It is a lifelong pursuit that empowers us to build a life that is in harmony with our values and contributes to the betterment of ourselves and society. Religions have often offered valuable insight into ethics. And it is interesting to explore common virtues shared among various religious traditions. Some of these shared values are among us right now when we talk about honesty, community, reverence, benevolence, empathy. When I examine the religions of the world, there's a consistent theme. These energies of duality represent and reflect contrasting virtues and vices, illuminating the range of ethical qualities and behaviors that exist in our human interaction. Each pair of values represent a spectrum, with one an embodying positive ethical qualities and the other representing negative and unethical traits. Acknowledging and reflecting on these dualities can deepen our understanding of ethics and help us navigate moral choices in various situations. By recognizing the importance of virtues such as bravery and charity and compassion and faith, forgiveness, gratitude, honesty, these qualities in our lives and interactions uplift our lives. But it's equally important to recognize the importance of virtues such as cowardness, meanness, indifference, mistrust, retribution, thanklessness, deceit, pride, inequity, cruelty, hate, bigotry, and ignorance. These are the virtues that build our resiliency. Embracing positive virtues while consciously working to overcome negative tendencies can lead to personal growth and contribute to a more ethical and harmonious society. It is critical to approach ethics with an open mind and a willingness to explore different perspectives and values. By embracing the duality inherited in ethics, we can foster a more nuanced understanding of right and wrong, and work towards aligning our actions with the virtues that lead to a more just, compassionate, and ethical world. At the end of the day, we are human. Does not matter of your pigmentation, your religious beliefs. We are human. It is said that the truth shall set you free, but only if one is open to the truth that binds us. We all walk the same earth, breathe the same air, drink the same water. We all come from woman, and death will visit us all. Let us not be colorblind, but be human-sighted. Ethics is a choice. It is a practice that must be exercised in every choice and every day. Thank you very much, my esteemed colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Rawle. That was indeed an elaborate definition, discussion on the significance and need for ethics, distinguishing between the two visions through which we could see the world. And I think it was the most clear comment on the perspectives we carry, which determines our vision and the way we live in this world. And it was so crisp and elaborate that you addressed several existential queries and gave us so many angles to look at life. And truly, it shows the inner struggle and the deep contemplation you have experienced in your life. Thank you so much for sharing your views. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for joining us. So moving on, I invite my next speaker. He's Dr. Swaraj Raj, former head Department of English and Dean Faculty of Languages, Shri Guru Granth Sahib World University, Fatehgarh Sahib, Punjab. He will talk on ethics, the intellectual perspectives. Dr. Swaraj Raj has a teaching experience of over 40 years and is an expert in the fields of translation studies and nature conservation. I extend a warm welcome to you, sir, and invite you for your lecture, Ethics, Intellectual Perspectives. Dr. Swaraj Raj. Sir, please unmute yourself. Dr. Swaraj, you're requested to unmute your system, and then only we can hear you.
Okay, I think, am I unmuted now?
Yes, sir. Now it's fine.
Not being very. Thank you so much, Dr. PARNEET JAGGI, Dr. JERNAIL SINGH ji, for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about ethics. And Dr. Molly Joseph, galaxy of speakers, thinkers, poets. Well, I am not going to talk about intellect and ethics as the topic given to me. Basically, I'm a man from literature. Dr. Harish Narang, whom I consider to be my teacher, is there. He is also a man of literature. And I will talk about whether ethics can be disseminated through literature, whether they have been done through literature or not, and the kind of a very vexed relationship of ethics and literature that there has been all through. Dr. Rawle talked about duality. Well, this duality marks the relationship of literature and ethics also. My talk is almost anecdotal. So I'll begin with a small anecdote. And that will foreground the uneasy relationship of literature and ethics. This incident took place sometime in 2006. At that time, Tarun Tejpal, who was a well-known journalist, known for his very important, he actually unearthed many scams, political scams, and he was quite well venerated, quite well respected journalist at the time. And he wrote a novel, and that novel was called, its title was The Alchemy of Desire. See, on the blurb were two statements, one made by Khushwant Singh and the other by V.S. Naipaul. Khushwant Singh praised it as perhaps the best novel in Indian English writing. And V.S. Naipaul, who had about a month ago made a statement in an interview that he never read Indian English writing because he found everything to be trash. He said that he had gone through it and found it really very, very interesting. And one person on the blurb had written that it was a groundbreaking, trend-setting novel in Indian English writing. So I bought it, read it, and then there was a seminar in Punjab University on recent trends, emerging trends in English writing. And when I read this novel, I found that it was essentially an Orientalist text, which talked about sexuality, Indian sexuality, especially of the kings, the Nawabs, and it was written in bad English. I mean, not incorrect English, but not English that I would really relish somehow. I found nothing in it except that it was like an X-rated film, blue film, third grade film, right? There was nothing in it except a very Orientalist depiction of sexual practices of Indians, mostly of men, of Nawabs and kings. Voyeurism, exhibitionism, sadomasochistic practices, and kinky sex. There was plenitude of all these things to titillate the willing. The telling was no better. So I read a paper on it in that seminar, trying to excoriate this text as if, I was trying to say that if such text is considered to be a trend-setting text in Indian writing and English, then we were in for bad times. Well, there were different observations from different people. Some praised me for calling this a spade. And there were some very disturbing comments from some academics that I was taking a moral stand. I was not trying to appreciate the singularity of the text, but my stand was a moral stand. I was speaking from an ethical perspective. Now, even in the valedictory function also, I was accused of taking an ethical stand on this text. I think this episode exemplifies the vexed relationship of ethics and literature. Since Plato's castigation of the poets in the Republic and his decree that he could not have poets in his Republic on moral and epistemological grounds, and his disciple Aristotle's ontological defense of poetry, this pendulum has been vacillating between whether literature teaches morality or it subverts it. Does literature exist in a vacuum for its own sake? No, there has always been, a kind of issue between didactic and aesthetic views of literature. In different ages, these two extremes have defined the place of literature in our lives vis-a-vis moral and ethical values espoused or denigrated by literature. I just wish to problematize this relationship by raising a few questions here that beg well thought answers by all of us. It has been said that we really talk about ethics. We don't tire of talking about ethics, but we hardly put them into practice. So I think we need to raise some issues, important issues about certain things. I do not have the answers myself, but only questions. And I believe that it is by raising relevant questions only that we can learn about ourselves and our own biases that tend to get foregrounded in any discussion on ethics and moral values. We are living in a world marked by rapid change and ineradicable heterogeneity. I think we all will agree with me that we are living in an extremely heterogeneous world, and we cannot really efface that heterogeneity. We have to accept the other. That means more viewpoints. Now, postmodernism, we are all familiar with this phenomenon. Postmodernism, with its relentless decentering of all foundational texts, principles that helped us build moral obligations, and decentering even of the self, had dealt a massive blow to ethical thinking. And I was the target of this kind of postmodernist utopia where everything is right. Everything goes. Postmodernism dismantled the criteria of good and bad, what is beautiful and ugly, and many other binaries that served to underpin our moral values. This did release, postmodernism, I will agree, I'll grant that it did release tremendous creative energies, especially in mass media, popular culture. But at the same time, it also led to a chaotic situation in which everything is right. It was in the 1990s, once again, that there was what we can say an ethical turn. And authors like Martha Nussbaum, in her beautiful book, I think it was published in 1986, Fragility of Goodness. And later on, Wayne C. Booth's The Company We Kept, The Ethics of Fiction. And then Colin McGinn's Ethics, Evil and Fiction, brought into focus the role of literature in fostering moral values. They were taking a sort of neo-Aristotelian stand, though their arguments were more epistemological. They were of more epistemological nature than ontological. Later on, Levinasian philosophy came to the fore in interpretation of literary texts, especially where ethics are concerned or ethics is concerned. Now, given the present scenario in which we are living, we have talked about artificial intelligence. We have talked about different viewpoints. We have talked about heterogeneity. There is absolutely no doubt that there are certain values which are common to all humanity. But the fact is that those meta texts which enshrine those values, they have been dismantled, they have been deconstructed. So we are left with a world which appears to be valueless in a way. And earlier, Dr. Molly Joseph talked about education. I'll just give one example here. And that's a very important example, how education does what it does to us. During the Manhattan Project, when the atom bomb was manufactured for the first time, it was made for the first time in America. That was called Manhattan Project. Enrico Fermi, he was an Italian scientist, and he was somebody who was known for his expertise in splitting the atoms. So he was also enlisted for it. And 2 or 3 days before the first experiment was to be done, I mean, the experimental explosion was to be done, some journalists went to Enrico Fermi and they said, well, Mr. Fermi, you can still rethink about the project, because ultimately this project can bring the entire humankind to devastation. And Enrico Fermi replied, these are his exact words: don't bother me by your moral scruples. For me, the entire thing is absolutely beautiful physics. It is exquisite physics for me. This was a great scientist. So this is how we have trained our scientists, as if they do not belong to society, as if they do not have anything to do with ethics, as if they live in ivory towers. And we in literary academia also tend to do the same in many ways. Now, given this kind of scenario, I will raise a few questions, and I would like, if at all possible, later on, maybe someday, we can talk about these issues.
phone चालू हो गया.
So the first question that comes to my mind is, what is literature? What do you call literature? This is a fundamental question because it rakes up the larger issue of what the literary academy considers to be literature, which is prescribed in the university and college syllabi, but is seldom read outside the academy. And also, what is known as pop literature, something which is read, pop culture, something which people consume, and we associate with it with consumerism also. There is no doubt that pop literature has now found its way into literary academy also because of the development of cultural studies departments in different universities, and especially, people like, because of the efforts of people like Stuart Hall, but more so by the effort of somebody like Slavoj Zizek. And the second question that I would like to place in front of you, the answers were provided earlier by Professor Rawle, right? There is no doubt, but still, this question is there. Whose moral values and ethics does literature espouse? I'm talking about literature. In which language and for whom? This raises the larger issue of politics of representation, the location of the author and the text the author produces in relation to other texts. The third is, can we really have an overarching meta-narrative of moral values that will be relevant and emancipatory for all the peoples of all societies, high or low, big or small, men and women, black and white? The next is, should a literary text be read devotionally, like a scripture only? This is what we generally do. Should a literary text be read devotionally like a scripture, so that we passively accept the moral values the author preaches? Should, in other words, literature be treated reverentially for its gospel value? Or will an oppositional reading only reveal the blind spots of the moral values the author wants to disseminate? Should not captive, but cognitive value of literature be a sufficient ground for its morality? The next question is, should we not examine dispassionately the role played by literature in changing our society? We often say that literature, poetry can make us It can make us empathetic, it can make us benevolent, it can give us sensitivity and all that. Wordsworth was also saying it all the time. Romantics always claimed, Shelley, that poetry makes us sensitive, it sensitizes us. Has it really done so? Has literature changed society for the good or for worse? Now, I'll just give one example here, and that is of a text called Lolita by Nabokov. Should praise be showered on works such as Nabokov's Lolita, which is extremely well written? The language is absolutely ludic. He plays with language and he gives a lot of delight when you read it. But ultimately, the text ends justifying child abuse. How should we respond to it? Should the ludic and autotelic views of literature alone be the grounds for reading? Now, here it is the reader who becomes very important. The reading to be attempted, should it respond, should reading respond to the otherness and singularity of the characters in the text, or the singularity of the text itself? And then next is, shall we be comfortable with the reduction of literary works to certain singular or dominant value? This is what we generally do again in the classroom. Read a poem, read a literary work, and then reduce it to just one meaning. Shall we be comfortable with the author speaking to us like a priest from the pulpit? I mean, here I am talking about didactic literature. The authors keep telling us, you do this, you do that. Should we accept the author as a priest talking down onto us from the pulpit? At least I am not comfortable with any sermonizing of certain moral values. The values should emerge from some kind of oppositional reading. And then the next is, should our moral compass not have a historical dimension? Now, what I mean here is that we cannot separate the kind of literature that is written today from the world around us. There is a term called econopoiesis. Econopoiesis is when poetry making and economy, they come together. And the best minds today are writing jingles for consumer products. They go into advertising. Poems are being written as jingles for advertising products. Paintings of Van Gogh are being used to sell certain products. So should we not really think about how and how we are surrounded by a system that simply wants to reduce us to consumers? Should we really not think of econopoiesis also when we think of literature? So these are the questions that I wanted to really but raise. I don't have easy answers, but I'm really grateful to all the participants, Professor JERNAIL, especially Professor Arindam Roy is there, and Professor Harish Narang, for giving me the time, for listening to me and some might feel very inane questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swaraj. What should I say? This was like practicality capsuled in just 10 minutes, a lecture of 10 minutes. I wish we could give you more time, but because doing justice to the others is more important than the individual time slot, But I think you sensitized us with questions that have concerned mankind for long, plus you've added some more questions, and looking at the relationship of life and literature through a pragmatic, realistic lens. That was excellent. Art for art's sake, art for life's sake has been an old conflict in literature. But coming to the recent times and relentless decentering of texts and self, you said, and the heterogeneity that we are witnessing, there has been a blow to ethics. I mean, you recognize that blow in a very subtle yet clear manner. That was superb in your expression. And Dr. Swaraj, your belief in raising these pertinent questions will certainly show us a direction to move on in the right way. And you have given us ticklish questions to our mind, which we will carry forward at our homes in our times of contemplation. So that was an exemplary thought process that you put forward in a very, very short period of time. Thank you so much for enriching us. Thank you so much for joining us. That was indeed enriching. Thank you so much for being our guest speaker. My next invite is for our chief guest, Dr. BASUDEB Chakraborti, former professor of English and faculty dean, University of Kalyani, West Bengal. Dr. Chakraborti needs no introduction. He's a seasoned writer, a voracious reader, and a critic known for his critical insights and in-depth analysis of literary works. Dr. BASUDEB Chakraborti, I invite you for your speech. I hope you're hearing me, sir. Let me check if he's online right now. Dr. BASUDEB, can you hear me, sir?
He was around.
Right now, maybe he's gone offline for a moment or so because there may be connectivity issues. I think he's online, yes. Dr. BASUDEB Chakraborti, can you hear me, sir? Okay, so Dr. Anand, should we move on and come back to him once again when he's free and online? So please unmute yourself. Dr. Anand, please unmute yourself.
I think we were to move on with the Mandakini now.
Yeah, I can see Dr. BASUDEB online, but perhaps he's away for a while or so. So we'll come back to him maybe after the next lecture. So now I request my dear friend on board, Dr. Mandakini Bhattacharya, a beautiful poet, writer, critic, translator, a wonderful human being, my dear friend, to take over the session and invite the guests of honor we have with us today. Dr. Mandakini.
Dr. Praneeth, whenever Dr. BASUDEB is around, please take over. So
he is there online, but I think he's not on his seat. So maybe when he rejoins. Dr. BASUDEB, can we have you?
Yes, come.
Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Please, yes, sir. Please go on with your speech.
I can't make the wish.
We
I'm
can't
using.
see.
Okay. The topic.
You need to set your camera, sir. You need to set your camera. Your voice is audible, but we can't see your face.
It will take some time. So it's better to speak without camera. Listen to me.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, sir, please continue.
Growth or decline? Man's changing ethical values. The change, this is my, and forgive me, I should say one thing at the very beginning. My greetings to all erudite scholars present in this International Academy of Ethics and its inaugural function. Thank you. The change, the growth and the ethical value system in our civilization was discernible because human beings wanted to highlight certain values that would expedite the overall growth of individual, society, and certain definite values, conventions, depended upon the natural justice for running states and good governance of countries. At one point, greatest good of the greatest number of people. This idea, propounded by Bentham, started gaining immense popularity after the collapse of the feudalistic system of society and the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. A different nature of ethical values started emerging. The epoch-making and revolutionizing impact of the Industrial Revolution in Europe changed the structure of ethical values in Europe. In England, one of the important consequences of the new phenomenon, the Industrial Revolution, was alarmingly rising with alarming rising population. The population increase was in response to the steady demand of more laborers resulting from rapid industrialization of the northern part of England. Unemployment was there, but it was due to the depression endemic to the industrial economy of the 19th century, according to industrial. Unemployment was there, but it was due to the depression endemic to the industrial economy of the 19th century. Marianne Williams, in her doctoral dissertation, believes that industrial growth of England was lopsided. Moreover, agriculture ceased to be the main basis of British economy after the middle of the 19th century. The British government decided to import foodstuff from the outside to help in the industry expand, or even at the cost of suffering farmers. The boom of ship industry in the 17th century England impacted to import foodstuff from, and that enabled the government to change the budgetary allocation from more to industry than to agriculture. In this connection, I refer to the name of then British Prime Minister, Mr. Robert Peel, who, on the floor of the British Parliament, said categorically that England will import from Canada and other parts of some parts from the United States, and that will be imported from the other side of the Atlantic. We may agree those ethical values, art and literature, all this depend upon the socio-economic condition of a society. In addition to this, instinct for self-preservation under no circumstances can be ignored under any circumstances. This also promotes man's idea for excess of savings for the future. It results in greed. I mentioned categorically greed, criminal hankering after power, a tendency to hegemonize the people, and even the World War III. In the years ahead, one country or a group of countries will try to grab lands of some other countries. This is the result of unbridled greed. When we refer to man's unbridled greed, the word altruism comes to my mind. Altruism is a philosophical doctrine. Altruism means once or a group of people or even of one political party is acting to further someone's or a group of people's welfare. Altruism is a love for fellow beings. Altruism describes a theory of conduct that aspires to be good of others as the ultimate end of any ethical action. I here refer to evolution. Augustus Scott, who say that the perfection of man's life is the zenith point of ethical evolution. Leslie Stephen, Virginia Woolf's father, as an offshoot of Comte's positivism in England, believes that man's attainment of perfection will be possible by sacrificing his personal happiness. In a later Victorian, perfection will be possible by sacrificing his personal happiness in later Victorian poets and novelists. I refer to some lines of a poem written by Thomas Hardy. The title of the poem is Melia, M-E-L-I-A, Melia. Oh, Melia, my dear, this was everything crowned. Who could have supposed I should meet you in the town? And whence such a garment, such a fair garment, such prosperity? Oh, don't you know, I had been ruined. You in tatters, without shoes and socks, tired of digging potatoes and started spudding up docks. And now you have gay bracelets and bright features of the sea. Yes, that is witness when we are ruined, said he. So it's a kind of shifting of social values. When the farmers from the southern of England rushed to the north of England, what happened? There was a migration, and this migration resulted in the collapse of agricultural system in the southern part of England. And the same thing has also been reflected in D.G. Rossiti's poem, Jenny. In Jenny, Rossiti says, the narrator of this poem says, when she would lie in fields and look along the ground through blown grass and wonder where the city was, far out of sight, whose broil and bale would told her than for a child's tale. Jenny, you know the city now. Poor Jenny, all your pride and woe have seen your lifted silken scarf. Advertised dainties through the dark have seen you quote splash rebuke on virtue. So this migration resulted in a kind of social impact, particularly in relation to women in those days. So Thomas Hardy, Rossiti, even Dylan Thomas in later period of the modern civilization talks about all this. I mean, it is changing in every phase of civilization, modern civilization, even during the time of Renaissance. Think of the plays written by Marlowe, Chamberlain, aspiration, unbridled ambition. All of the characters most of the pivotal characters in Marlowe's plays are What about Edward II? What about Gaveston? What about Machiavellianism as reflected in the character of HERMAN? What about Isabella? Think of all those characters. They try to overreach their limitations. So it is a kind of change in the ethical value system. This is what I say. Herbert Spencer, in his Principle of Ethics, says that individual should be allowed to lead his life following the dictates of his intuition that comes from his within. He directly talks about deregulated society. Spencer talks about laissez-faireism. Spencer passionately argues that social life should be free from the meddling of government and social reforms. He develops his notion of rabid individualism from a conception of industrial society. Spencer, in Principle of Ethics, says that industrial society is one that is based on contract and cooperation among individuals, unquote. I bypass here of Spencer's classification between industrial society and militant society. I mentioned the deregulation US postal system immediately after the publication of the Principle of Ethics. Entire postal system in the United States was deregulated because he was in fear of man's attempt to lead their lives from the dictates that come from his man's within. Now I will refer to another important thing. I think it is very relevant. Moreover, it is. I have some certain problems in using this camera. If you look at even one of the novels of Hardy, we will find the Victorian outlook on the chastity of woman was that she should not have any sexual experience before her marriage. I mean, premarital sex was condemned. Everybody knows that there was a very common practice of women to use the chastity belt. What does it mean? At the same time, in the same period, women's empowerment has started. Wollstonecraft. Sometime even Wollstonecraft, who was born in 1759, died in 17. A Vindication of Rights of Women has been already published in 1792. So, in one side, there was a movement for women's empowerment. At the same time, another way of the aftermath, destructive scenario after the Industrial Revolution. Because from village to the town, people rushed. So the Victorian outlook of the chastity of a woman was that she should have not any sexual experience before her marriage. Tess's loss of virginity before her marriage, even though it was against her will, shocks Angel Clare. Though Angel Clare claims to be an emancipated man with an openness of mind and broad vision of life, the moment he learns about Tess's seduction of Alec, he becomes upset and loses his sanity. His sanity is injured. A piece of conversation between Tess and Claire after her confession will reveal the emotional reality of Claire's attitude towards the chastity of a woman whom he is going to have his wife. Then, Angel Clare says, then how can you, oh my husband, you stop loving me? This is Tess asked Angel Clare. That marriage. I repeat, the woman I have seen The woman I have been loving is not you. But who? Another woman in your shade. So values, ethical values change over time. So ethical values change over time. We are not supposed, we cannot. The present cannot say the future, say anything about the future. The future will tell us what is right or what is wrong. We are not Tarsius of T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. Look at the present times. We are talking about, Dr. Mala has used this matter, artificial intelligence. Am I in position to say right now that it will invite some basic, some fundamental good in our society in future? No. In our days, in our college days, we were acquainted with intelligent quotient, that is of bygone days. Recent war of aggression in Europe, annexation of land, growth of weapon industry, what the benefit mankind will harvest out of the tremendous, unprecedented growth of nuclear weapons or weapon industry. What is its importance? So moral values are, this is a part of morality. Morality, ethical values is in broad spectrum, includes a lot of things, What Dr. SWARAJ Paul has said, postmodernist utopia. Do you think it will be good or it will be bad, or it's a decline or a growth of human thought? Postmodernism, post-truth era. What is this? Post-truth era, everything is true. Is it possible? But we are not in position to make any comment right at this moment. We have to observe it, we have to see it. And literature has definitely certain tranquilizing effect upon the minds of readers. It is a fact. And threat of new nuclear war. Think of the earlier concept of nuclear deterrence. Is it successful now? We can make a comment right now that the concept of nuclear deterrence is invalid today. We made a lot of things, but what happened? Nuclear deterrence, even reduction of nuclear bombs, agreement, effective? Certainly not. Then why these conditions? Why is this condition? What is the reason of this condition? I don't. Why? And another thing, world as one tiny village. Is it multiculturalism? For example, think of our country. Can we think that India is a homogeneous country? India is, there is one culture, there is one mainstream religion, one language, one religion? Certainly not. So in our country, there are diversities. Instead of saying, in the context of our country, India can be described diversity in unity, not in unity in diversity. Thank you very much for listening to me for this time. My mobile is giving me problems. So I'm sorry, very much sorry. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Basudeb. That was indeed insightful, taking us into a journey through literature, through historical works, picking up Marlowe, Hardy, Eliot. Yes, that was a lens indeed. We need to look through that lens also, and we need to connect it to the present life. So moving on, I now request my friend Dr. Mandakini Bhattacharya, Associate Professor English from Kolkata, to take over the session and invite the guest of honor we have with us today. Mandakini.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible, Dr. PARNEET JAGGI.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. JAGGI, the convener of this excellent inauguration, and Dr. JERNAIL Singh Anand for giving me this opportunity to meet this host of this galaxy of international and national stars, erudite scholars who are present today. I welcome them all. I have only one small request. Since we are running a little short of time, could we please confine each comment to 5 minutes of our time? Thank you so much. I would so like you, I think there is a background noise from some mic. If everybody could just mute themselves, that would be very much welcome.
Yeah, Dr. Basudev needs to mute his mic. I'll just check. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Jaggi. So I would just request all our honored guests to confine their comments to 5 minutes of time, please. We are getting on in the evening. And first of all, our first guest who has been waiting for a long time, the internationally renowned scholar, Dr. Harish Narang. I'm getting goosebumps introducing him right now because for me and Dalit scholars like me, his book Writing Dalit is like a Bible. He was professor and chairperson at the Center of English Studies at JNU in New Delhi, and his major publications include Politics as Fiction, Mightier Than Meshed, and of course Writing Dalit, which as I said, is Bible for all Dalit scholars. He has been a recipient of British and Canadian government scholarships, and in fact is well known all over the world, renowned for his views on Dalit politics and Dalit scholarship. So please, we are eagerly waiting for you to give us some of your thoughts. Thank you, sir. Dr. Harish Narang.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you're audible perfectly. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Dr. Anand and International Academy of Ethics for inviting me for this brief presentation. Thank you very much for telling me that I should be confining myself for 5 minutes, whereas the inaugural session has overrun by 1 full hour. Is that ethical? Ethics doesn't lie in big things. It also lies in small things. Anyways, let me try and speak in sutras, and please give me 30 seconds before that, give me a warning and I shall shut up. Some time ago, I wrote a detailed discussion, discourse on ethics and creative writing, which I presented perhaps in one of the seminars here or elsewhere, where I talked of ethics in teaching, in research, in creative writing. But today, I propose to present some thoughts about the need for ethics in our day-to-day life, whether it is the life of an individual, community, or a nation. But before that, I want to make a small personal reference to my childhood and primary education. When I was about 7 or 8, we were all given in the school a small notebook called Red Cross notebook, in which we had to note every single day one event of ethical doing, ethical action, like helping somebody who was a needy, like helping someone who was in special need, etc., etc. Well, sometimes we cooked up things because the teacher wanted to check the book, but most of the times we really tried to do things because we were expected to write in our notebooks. This was my first introduction to ethics in life. Simultaneously, whenever I went out with my parents and my parents wanted to give some money or food to someone who was begging or was in need, they always gave it to us, children, and said, now give it to them. By that, they were training us to be sensitive to the needs of others. Well, all that is gone now. This is what the families and the teachers taught by way of ethics. Now, ethics is completely gone from our lives, personal, professional, interpersonal relations at the national level, international level, regional level, and even personal levels. There are two religions which, to my mind, entail compulsorily for people to show charity to the people who are in need, and this is Sikhism and Islam. The others, of course, encourage you, motivate you to be charitable, etc., etc. Thus, I find there is an absolute deficit of ethics in the lives of most humans, and currently, the only objective in lives of people is to make money and more money, whether legally or illegally. Everything is welcome. And live life very, very ostentatiously, you know, where you flaunt your brands, where you flaunt your what you call as pay packages, and where you can spend, and this happens in my country also, you can spend over ₹1 lakh on an evening's dinner, whereas half of the population of this country is badly malnutrition. Is that ethics? And when money gets converted to power, which invariably it does, and it is used then to dominate and exploit others through unethical means. And these unethical means have a whole range. They can be economic, they can be social, political, and sexual. Colonialism is perhaps the worst example of such domination, and including, of course, slavery. And we are all familiar that slavery is not gone in its worst avatar, namely sexual slavery. It not only exists today, but it thrives. The magical word development, you know, that's a mantra. Development actually means, in most cases, even in the case of individuals or nations, self-development by hook or by crook. Look at the Ukrainian war. It is a war through which America is trying to get back to its dominant position. It wants to subserve Europe, which by coming together through EU was trying to assert something. That's the real purpose. It is selling its oil at 5 times the price to Europe than what Russia was trying to do. Here are some recent examples of unethical things which need ethical intervention, and I will shut up after that. Look at the Russian-Ukrainian war. In 2015, in Minsk, there was a treaty where Ukraine agreed that in the eastern and the southern part where Russian origin people live, they will get more autonomy, especially for promoting their own language and culture. They blatantly violated that, and the result is before us. And that country will get destroyed thanks to the Western intervention and armament. I can predict it today. Russia will survive, Ukraine will not. Second, look at the national levels. I'll talk of the world and also of my own country. Pandemic was such a big disaster for the whole world, but certain unethical people gained so much out of it. Hospitals, we all know, hospitals exploited all that. And in my country also, for instance, hospitals, oxygen suppliers, medicine suppliers, ambulance owners for carrying dead bodies did what we all saw. And same for regions. In my country, there are water wars between one region and another, between what you call as one state and another. Communities. In my country, there are killings in the name of religion communities. Is that ethical? Individuals. We have recently had in my country a case where a PhD supervisor demanded sexual favors from a girl student before signing her thesis. Today's paper, this morning, 2 women in India have adopted a male child, 5-year-old male child, whom they took away from a beggar woman illegally. And they have been exploiting that 5-year-old male child sexually, making videos and uploading them on internet. They have been arrested. But this is what morality has come to. This is what lack of ethics has come to. We all know about the Me Too movement in the US, where blacks are killed. Even today, the mother of democracies, or whatever you call it, they are killed for nothing, just for the skin color. In Canada, people with turban, although we are so many in Canada, are still being maltreated despite the fact that Sikhs are in power in the federal government and in regional governments. It is here that the role of International Academy of Ethics and such institutions comes in, which are trying to put back ethics on the mainstream agenda in people's lives, in the lives of communities, in the lives of religions. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, sir. I apologize for the paucity of time once again.
No apologies. I am a very different person. This was ethical by your standards, but not ethical by my standard. Thank you very much. You
Thank
gave
you
me
so
an
much,
opportunity.
sir,
I'm
once
grateful.
again. Thank you, sir, for your opinions. And
I'm sorry I'll have to leave. I'm late by 1 hour where I had to go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for attending and bestowing your opinions, your thoughts, sharing your thoughts with us. And being professors, I guess we are all used to making such adjustments in time, whether 5 minutes or 1 hour. We accommodate, and Dr. Harish Narang was equally accommodating. Thank you so much, sir. I would now like to call upon Madame Claudia Piccino, if she would kindly grace us with her comments. Before she speaks, I would just like to quickly introduce her. Madame Claudia Piccino is a teacher, poet, and translator living in Italy. And she is has been featured in more than 100 anthologies, has been graced with many iconic awards like the Global Icon Award for 2020 for Writers Capital International Foundation, the Shahitya International Jury Award of Bangladesh in 2021, and the Azad International Award in Poetry in India in 2021. One of her poems in blue is displayed on a Maiolica stele posted on the seafront in Santa Caterina di Nardo. And she is European editor for the international literary magazine Papyrus in Turkey and for Tunis magazine International. I welcome Madam Claudia Piccino. Kindly grace us with your comments.
Hello, good evening to you all. It's nice to be here, and I congratulate with all eminent intellectuals who spoke before me. I express also my deepest condolences on India about the terrible railway accident that happened 2 years ago. Well, I wonder if poetry has a ethic and pedagogical function. So I try to share my slide because there is a great storm in Italy now, and I hope my connection will be good. Maybe the organizer must allow me to share my slides, my screenshot. I need to share my slides. If it is possible, otherwise I will read.
Ma'am, there is a share screen option in Zoom through which you can share your slide.
Okay. No, okay. It's not possible. Well, I will read. I'll try to be short. Okay. Well, the pedagogical ethic and economic value of poetry. As a teacher of inclusion, so some colleagues call me, I've always encouraged every expressive medium, allowing my students to use any kind of language, iconic, mimic, gestural, putting them on the same level with the verbal one. This is because I firmly believe in the pedagogical, relational, and cathartic and ethic value of each art form. Poetry in particular intervenes where faith and reason do not find a way out, becoming like Ariadne's thread in the labyrinth. Poetry saves us from the homologation to which the global society of our times forces us, so it gives us our limits and our potential resources. It is a necessary means to rediscover our uniqueness. Art and poetry help us in the inner search, reconcile us with our instincts and intuitions, They purify us from the conditioning, and while they bear us, they show our human finitude and our infinite desire to improve ourselves. Already the poems of Homer and Hesiod constitute the Greek paideia at the time of the Archaic Age. Every poet was considered to be a teacher and educator. In this sense, poetry was didactic. In the 5th century before Christ, with the Sophists, we witness the attempt to replace the traditional teaching of the poets with philosophy. In the first half of the 4th century before Christ, Plato will deny poets the predominant role they had until then concerning the transmission of knowledge and the function of education. According to Plato, poetry was an imitation of reality, and at the most he admitted it as a genre of entertainment. In Aristotle's Poetics, we find the first clear symptom of distinction on the theoretical level of a didactic poem, which was then cultivated and codified with greater awareness in the Hellenistic age. In Aristotle's opinion, poetry is a techne, and it falls within the activities governed by rationality and subjected to identifiable rules. Therefore, there is a revaluation of poetry. In my opinion, poetry as a whole, regardless of whether it is lyrical, epic, or didactic, spreading itself, helps us to reconcile ourselves with the slowness and introspection, and becomes a maieutica, in the sense that Socrates attributed to it. That is a method of investigation that causes the interlocutor to shed light within himself. Paul Klee, many centuries later, will say, even in art, there is enough space for exact research. Poetry feeds introspection, but even more, it sows questions and nurtures critical thinking. It teaches us how to enjoy the beauty and joy of little things, but it is only when it is performed that it reveals its ethic function, because it leads us to reach out to those who suffer, to develop empathy and a sense of sharing. Neruda, with his civil poems, has a very clear idea of the task of the poet, who must not be a courtier, but must endeavor for the awakening of conscience. Neruda said that the poet must sow, live, and return. Still Quasimodo, in Italy, between the two world wars, will write, poetry must remake the man. Poetry has to rebuild the man. The imagination is immanent in the creative gesture. Let's not forget that in all the Indo-European languages, but also in the Greek meaning poiesis, poetry means creation. The imagination, I said, becomes concreteness in poetry, not only as a liberation movement. Franco Loi defines poetry in this way, but also with a prophetic intention. Prophecy means speaking forward in favor of speaking well. The imagination in the 19th century, poetry was no longer the exaltation of heroes, wars, and conflicts, but freed itself from any form of ideological dependence, and influenced by Oriental philosophy based on non-violence thought, it assumed an intention of self-discovery, deconditioning from prejudices and working as a promoter of ethic and aggregation. Poetry becomes a bridge between peoples, weaves a relationship, and brings us closer to our little sacred, to allude with Pasolini to the inner richness of each individual. If we do not linger at the mask on the stereotypes that makes us a person and imprison the individual into social categories. Horace, the great Latin poet, said, aut insanite homo, aut versus facit. The man becomes crazy if he doesn't write poetry, even a single verse. In the words of Mariangela Gualtieri, an Italian poet, poetry is a privileged environment from which news of the inner self arrives, an area in which there is excellent nourishment for it, with geographical maps, compass, microscope, roads, and means to travel through it, investigate it, hear it resound, feel it suffer in all its profound malnutrition. This path of reconnection with oneself is extremely urgent, more urgent than politics, burning hotter than social inequalities, more serious than poor economic performance, because the strength of politics depends on it, the understanding of other people's problems, the clarity of vision of the economy. Poetry is therefore also a multifunctional and multisensorial approach. It can help students to use their imagination. It can open a window onto a new landscape. Rodari said that the imagination is needed to build the man in full. If a society based on the myth of productivity and profitability needs mid-executive men, playful, diligent, docile tools without will, it means society is bad and you have to change it. To change it, creative men are needed. Poets are needed. Men who know how to use their imagination. In repressive society and also in the Western school of thought, there has always been a form of subjection of the imagination to logic and notionism. But already the English poet and philosopher Herbert Reed, in Educating with Art, insisted on developing an integral and organic way of thinking in children, where perception had equal dignity than logic. Indeed, he argued that to develop logical thinking and ethic behavior, it is not necessary to sacrifice the imagination. Schiller also stated that man is fully man only when he plays, thus recognizing an important role for the creative gesture. How does the poet act? The poet performs a creative act, takes us insight and brings us back to the archetypes of language. The poet mixes the language with the soil, throws poetry into the world and revives the language, makes it vibrate with the gushing water and burning fire. It is not necessary to use the language of the learned people. Dante Alighieri used the vernacular, the language of the people. It is necessary to start again from one's time and contextualize the world. And it is necessary to do it aloud, safeguarding the phonic enchantment so that the sound waves can reconnect us with our body. Moreover, it is ascertained that orality waves relationship. The orality of the recited verse implies listening, which produces empathy, produces the co-attendance of the unexplored land, which is our most authentic self. In this reciprocity of listening lies the mission of poetry, to bear witness to our time, a gesture that feeds the memory and lends a voice to the invisible. So that's my point of view about the function of poetry in our society. And I thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for connecting poetry to that quest of with ethics. And those were very valuable comments, Claudia, ma'am. I would now like to call out upon Dr. Ananta K. Giri in case he's present in the audience. Sir Ananta K. Giri, are you present? I cannot see him in the list of attendees. Dr. ISTVAN TURCZI from Hungary, are you present, sir? In case you have logged in from any unknown mobile, please let us know. Dr. ISTVAN TURCZI from Hungary, eminent poet. Okay. Dr. Bayram Recep Pagic from Australia. He was also supposed to speak today. Dr. Bayram, are you present here, logged in from some other device, because we cannot see your name? In case you are present, any of you, sir, ma'am, we invite you to speak. I would now like to call upon Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma to enlighten us with his views. And may I please remind the audience that please take only 5 minutes of time, because the more time we take, each of us, for our comments, the others are waiting and the evening is drawing on. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience. Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma, he has served as principal and...
excuse me.
Yes,
Just
yes, sir.
how much time do I get?
Sir, we would be very grateful if you could limit yourself
I-
to 5 minutes. May
Okay.
I introduce you? May I
There's no need-
introduce you, sir, please, quickly?
There's no need to introduce. I think it's all right. Thank you so much.
Sir, it's a formality. Please let me do it.
Just save on time. Save on time.
It's a formality, sir. Let me just continue and we will save on time. Thank you, sir. So Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma served as principal in government colleges and as director of the HP Regional Center at Dharamshala. I'm sure all of us present in the audience would like to know about his work. And it's fascinating to know that his first book of English poetry came out in '83 from Writers Workshop, Calcutta. Feel so proud because I belong to the city of Calcutta, and Professor P. Lal described his poetry as very exciting from a great deal of Indian verse in English. So we would now like to listen to Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma. Welcome, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, revered friends, am I audible?
Yes,
No
sir. Yes, sir. You're perfectly audible and visible, sir.
No picture here, of course. Anyhow, no, I think just one word with Dr. Anand. Must congratulate him over having such a big gathering. In the beginning, I noticed there were 44 participants, and it's an inaugural session, and progressively more must have joined. So it's a great function, this meeting. But I would just make one submission that in future, when we hold, we can have smaller number of people, maybe half a dozen or maybe 10 of them, so that we have more detailed discussion among ourselves. That's the submission. Otherwise, it was wonderful, I think, opening session. Well, friends, I had my education 7th to 10th in a place called Hisar, now in Haryana. And there was a municipal ground, and attached to it was a building which housed books, magazines, sports equipment, hockey, football, etc. We used to play games there and even get magazines and books. I read my Three Musketeers and Gulliver's Travels in Hindi version when I was in 8th there. So the point is, those were times when we used to get education, even going for a game in the evening, could buy books from the library for the evening, for the night, overnight, and study. Then we had teachers who used to teach us out of syllabus, beyond syllabus. And I, for a matter, I think many of you must have done it as teachers of English language literature. We were able to talk to students a lot of out of syllabus, beyond syllabus things that made them updated in so many ways. Now, why I bring this all in? Because the other day, as for the 2 decades, I have been like many of you on interview boards, selecting teachers. Last month, I was in a board. There were some candidates to be selected for computer teacher. So what happened was, it was 27th May. So I asked one, what's the importance of this today, 27th May, in the history of India? He couldn't come. I gave him an idea. Who was the first Prime Minister of India? He had no idea. I said, then who was the first Prime Minister? He could tell the name. I said, when did he die? The fellow says 1953. Then I asked another one, when was the emergency declared? The fellow says, in 1981. That year, even Amritsar was also attacked. Now, with such kind of information, some kind of knowledge, I mean, this is what you call, we save so much time from technology. We just tap one thing on the laptop, we get the whole of the Godra killings and inquiries and everything. We get to John Keats, we get to all the biography and all the poetry we want to read. And still, I believe that a teacher cannot be replaced by internet in a classroom, because internet will not tell you beyond the subject. But the students who are saving this time, none of those candidates that day was reading any newspaper. I thought maybe they're consulting the notifications on the phone, internet phone. But no, not one of them. Absolute no idea. So we used to have idea about 1919, about Chauri Chaura, about Quit India movement, and so many other things. I think we were luckier for that matter. But now people are just forgetting about what happened in the 20th century, as if we are asking about before Christ's era in a way. And this time saved. Now what they are doing it, they're going to social media. And social media, they're following what we derogatory call social media, given so many bad names also. They give you headlines only. Would you believe I did read proper, I remember, on Facebook an announcement when Mr. Prime Minister of India inaugurated the new Parliament building. There was one post, President and Vice President resign, Mr. Modi in a fix. No, you can post anything, any nonsense. And those who are not into discretion or into a kind of any critical thinking about what they are receiving, they just buy it and maybe spread it. Now, the point is, all that our civilization, Rigvedic word that we hear about, that Ano Bhadra Yantu Vishvata, let noble thoughts come to us from all sides. That is wonderful. Wonderful to pray in the morning, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. But do we follow that in the day? That is where the absence complete of ethics lies. The teachers who are saving time, the students who are saving time, they go for those top headlines. Now the point is, truth lies in details. They only believe in headlines. And the headlines, they just give the headline, black and white. They have no idea who saved Kashmir, who destroyed Kashmir, who did what. They have no idea absolutely. They believe anything said about Nehru. Somebody was saying Nehru did this and he insulted Tanaiya who resigned. Who would confirm that? They have no idea. They would not read any history book. They would not read anything extra. Now, John Keats 200 years ago said that the only means of strengthening our intelligence, is to make up our minds about nothing. Let your mind be a thoroughfare for thoughts. Something which J. Krishnamurti would have told in the last century, 20th century. But when no ideas are allowed to be there, no reading is to be there, it's my very clean experience that as a lecturer and as a principal, when I had a staff of 90 teachers, 90% of them would never read an extra book. Never. 90%, I'm being very generous in saying it. Not an extra book. This is a common experience. So why this kind of paucity of interest in knowledge? I mean, we hear about Eliot telling us where's the life we lost in living, where's the wisdom lost in knowledge, where's the knowledge lost in information. But they are not even into information. I mean, to upgrade from information to knowledge and to make a quantum jump to wisdom is a pretty different story. I mean, why there is such a lack of interest and knowledge in how the what's happening? I asked a student in the candidate about Russia and Ukraine. He had no idea. He said nothing between them. What's wrong? So the point I'm making is that so much time is saved, technology has saved our time, but it has been wasted. It has wasted on social media. You can go on watching any old songs, any Sarabhai serial, any serial you want, go on watching all that. You go on reading anything, but there is no concrete kind of information. So one thing must be kept in mind, ethics will arrive on its own. One truth lies in details. I just recall one sentence from Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago, where he said, a character says that is during the First World War, 17th Revolution, around that time the novel is about. So there are no nations, but only persons. There are no nations, but only persons. So if the persons, they can improve and change, the nation will take care of itself. But the persons have lost all interest in the contemporary. I mean, they are living, I think it's a quality to say that we live in present only, in the immediate only, right? But the immediate cannot be this kind of in a vacuum. That's what the modern young generation is doing. I'm not decrying the young generation. There are brilliant people, brilliant young people also. But the majority of them are not buying any ticket. They just want to jump on the train and travel without paying a penny. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma has raised a very pertinent question. Is society progressing or regressing with the advance in technology? Are we becoming more and more unethical instead of learning more about ethical issues? Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma. And I would now invite our next speaker, Dr. Nizar Sartawi from Jordan, is a poet and translator of Palestinian stock. He has penned more than 25 books and co-authored 5 books, and has been awarded the first prize in translation by Al-Nin Literary Organization in 1913. In January 2022, Al-Watane Arabi Media Foundation, based in London, honored him, creating a literary award after him, Nizar Sartawi Creativity Award for Translation and Literature. I now invite this eminent scholar who has been so patiently listening to all of us, Dr. Nizar Sartawi from Jordan, to enlighten us with his views.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're audible and visible, sir.
Thanks for the great introduction. And I enjoyed listening to everybody. Well, Dr. JERNAIL, Anand, my friend and host of this function, distinguished Academy fellows, poets, scholars, and participants, good evening. I'm really happy and honored to participate in this remarkable event, the International Academy of Ethics inauguration function. Greetings from Amman, Jordan. I hope to stick to the 3-minute rule. The title of my speech, or brief speech, is Exploring the Interplay of Poetry and Ethics, the Power of Words. And I know people are so frustrated that ethics are going down the drain. So we still have hope, or let's have hope. I say poetry has long been celebrated as a powerful art form that moves and inspires us. But its connection to ethics is often overlooked, as many of my colleagues have already pointed out. Beyond its aesthetic and emotional appeal, poetry has the capacity to explore profound ethical questions and engage readers in thought-provoking reflections on morality, on social justice, human values, and so on. Well, let's have a brief look at how intriguing the relationship between poetry and ethics work. How poets have used their craft to explore moral questions, inspire empathy, challenge societal norms, and ultimately contribute to the ethical consciousness of humanity. Let's consider poetry as a moral compass, for example. Poetry has long served as a moral compass, guiding individuals towards ethical reflection and action. Poets harness the power of language to convey moral dilemmas, illuminate social injustices, and encourage readers to contemplate their own values and beliefs. Ethical dimensions in poetic themes. Poets often address ethical themes such as love, justice, freedom, and the human conditions through vivid imagery, Metaphors and symbolism, they explore the complexities of these concepts, inviting readers to question prevailing notions and consider alternative perspectives. By challenging social norms and exposing moral contradictions, poetry can prompt introspection and promote a deeper understanding of ethical issues. Also, we can see poetry as a vehicle for empathy. One of the poetry's most remarkable attributes is its ability to foster empathy. By vividly depicting the experiences of others, poets can transcend barriers of time, culture, and individuality, forging connections between disparate lives. Through their words, poets humanize the suffering of others, evoke compassion, and inspire readers to act ethically in the face of injustice. Also, poetry, there is the ethical responsibility of the poet that we must think about. Poets bear a unique ethical responsibility due to the influence they wield over their readers. They must carefully consider the impact of their words and the potential consequences of their work. Ethical considerations encompass issues such as cultural sensitivity, representation, and the promotion of values that foster a just and compassionate society. And finally, poetry's potential for ethical transformation. The impact of poetry extends beyond individual reflection and moral contemplation. It possesses the power to ignite social movements, challenge oppressive systems, and inspire collective action. Throughout history, poets have played significant roles in advocating for change, shedding light on human rights violations, and challenging the status quo. By fostering dialogues and inspiring critical thinking, poetry can act as a catalyst for ethical transformation on a societal level. Actually, this is the first part of my speech, and I will stop here just saying that my second part was about those poets who contributed, not many of them, just examples from different parts of the world, those poets who inspired us with their ethical ideas. And I brought about 4 or 5, Rumi, Wordsworth, Langston Hughes, and so on. And I ended up with one of my favorite poets of all times, at least modern times, Dr. Anand, the author of Lustus. That was very inspiring. But even from his first work, he has always taken this journey towards a world, an ethical world. Thank you so much. I hope I haven't exceeded my time. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. You were very gracious and kind to sort of limit your comments. But yes, we would like to listen to you more on another occasion. I'm sure the International Academy of Ethics will provide us with such an opportunity. I would like to invite Bhagirath Choudhary, sir, if he's present. He was there. He did join us, but I can't see him right now. Bhagirath Choudhary, sir, in case you have joined us, can you please speak? I don't think he's there right now. May I invite our next speaker, our very beloved Arindam Roy, sir, to kindly enlighten us with his views. A very, very quick introduction to this man of various talents. 4 decades of experience he has in various newsrooms, founder, publishing director, editor-in-chief of Different Truths, as well as of Kavya Kumbh, the publishing division also of which has now opened. And co-author and solo author of several, in fact, about 14 coffee table books, many of which have some of appeared from places like Italy, from Marg India, from Bombay Times, the Times Group has published 2 of his coffee table books. And he has been present at many lit meets, including the prestigious Asia Pacific Writers and Translators Literature Fest in Bangalore, in November 2022. And he's co-author of the novel Reverse Run Back. And now we listen to this fascinating speaker, Shri Arindam Roy. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Audible and visible, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I thank Dr. Anand and everybody here, not taking names due to paucity of time. I'll be speaking on media and ethics, and I'll be breaking it into two parts. Firstly, I'll tell you my own experience, and then very briefly, though the paper was large, but very briefly on what media and ethics mean. Why do we read newspapers? Or why do we listen to news? The singular most important thing is that we want to know, is our city, is our village, wherever we are living, is it safe enough for us to go out and work? Or has there been any accident, just like we had one in Orissa? You know, news travels very fast. Often what happens, because of speed, we are compromising on accuracy, which should not happen. As newsmen, we are trained, we should talk about it at some other time, how to check the veracity of news, the authenticity of news, and we have different levels and layers of checking it. And we do it very fast. All of us do it very fast. We're trained to do it that way. Interestingly enough, today happens to be a very important day in my life also. June 4, 1981 was the day when I started my career as a journalist. This was in Bombay. And I started my work with HIMMAT, which was edited by Rajmohan Gandhi. He was my first editor-in-chief. I'll quickly read a little memory of mine, updating it to 42 years now. I had published it a few years back. I had called it Baptism by Fire, Destiny Shaped, 42 years ago. On June 4, 1981, I walked into a corner office located at Arun Chambers, Tardev, Bombay. HIMMAT, or Courage, was a magazine that laid the foundation stone of my career. Bindu Shah and I were two cub journalists. With Rajmohan Gandhi, the editor-in-chief, Kalpana Sharma, editor, Shahnaz Anklaseria, assistant editor, David Devida of LF Book Now, Rupa Chennai, Vijay Narayan Seth, et al. After 17 years, HIMMAT had to down its curtain in November 1981. The first 6 months of my career taught me lessons that I still follow. I had the option to return home or continue the profession. I had just passed my MA, my results were still not out. An opening in Economic and Political Weekly with CHAKRABORTI as its editor-in-chief furthered my commitment and saved me from the embarrassment of giving up the race near the start line. Interestingly, my formative years with HIMMAT and Economic and Political Weekly, EPW, two brave Bombay-based magazines that resisted censorship during the emergency imposed by Indira Gandhi, instilled in me the courage to stand up for truth. I look back with humility and devotion and thank my stars that had a chance to work with two greatest editors, Rajmohan Gandhi and CHAKRABORTI. Thank you, universe. So this is my bit of the story today. Now, coming to what I want to present as media ethics, navigating the ethical landscape of the media industry. This paper explores the ethical landscape of the media industry, focusing on the challenges faced by professionals and organizations in maintaining ethical standards. It examines critical ethical considerations such as truthfulness, objectivity, privacy, sensationalism, and conflicts of interest. Let us examine the multidimensional character of media ethics the veracity of the moral dilemmas media professionals confront today. By the way, this paper has been published by Dr. Anand in the Academy's blog. You all can go and check. I'll just read quickly the summary part. Let's examine the multidimensional character of media ethics, the veracity of the moral dilemmas media professionals confront today. Truthfulness and objectivity. Media ethics is a crucial aspect of journalism with two guiding principles, veracity and objectivity. To ensure the veracity of their reporting, journalists should prioritize fact-checking and verification procedures. The influence of partiality is another essential factor with personal, organizational, and ideological biases. Transparency is critical to ethical journalism as it develops audience trust and enables them to assess the credibility and reliability of the presented information. Objectivity is the practice of giving information without personal or organizational bias. Journalists should provide balanced representation of various viewpoints and avoid favoring any particular group or agenda, be it any political party or business houses that are your advertisers. Media organizations should establish and enforce guidelines and standards to ensure ethical journalism. Journalists should receive training and support to understand and adhere to these ethical principles. Media consumers should be discerning news consumers who query the origins and veracity of the information they encounter. If our readers go away, if our viewers go away, then how long can we lie? By adhering to these moral principles, journalists and media organizations can contribute to a more trustworthy and informed media landscape, nurturing public trust and fostering an educated society. Privacy and consent. We examined the ethical implication of media intrusion into the private affairs of individuals, the use of covert cameras, and the invasion of personal space. It stresses respecting privacy rights and obtaining informed consent when reporting on sensitive issues or interrogating individuals. Hidden cameras allow journalists and media organizations to capture footage without the knowledge or consent of the subject being videotaped, which is unethical. Obtaining informed consent is essential when dealing with sensitive issues or interrogating vulnerable subjects. I would like to add a small thing. When I entered newsroom in early 80s, an elder colleague told me that when he was a cub journalist, his editor had instructed rather, the word rape cannot be used. It was a taboo word in the newsroom. But now we see it, being used very freely. Ethical standards have changed. Somebody told us about it a while back. Media professionals must respect privacy rights and adhere to established ethical guidelines and codes of conduct to navigate complex terrain of privacy and consent. This includes anonymizing information, obtaining explicit consent, and assessing potential harm caused by disclosing private information. In the digital age, media organizations must consider the potential harm that may result from publishing private information, ensuring they do not contribute to disseminating harmful content or facilitating the violation of privacy. Adhering to ethical guidelines and code of conducts can aid media professionals in navigating the complexities of privacy and consent while preserving journalistic integrity and fostering a more honest media environment. Sensationalism and responsibility in the media is a persistent challenge to media industry ethics. It involves portraying news stories provocatively or to gain attention and increase ratings, which is wrong. We examine the potential repercussions of sensationalist reporting, including distortion of facts, manipulation of emotions, and influence on public opinion. All these have agendas. It emphasizes the need for responsible journalism that emphasizes veracity and the public interest over sensational. Journalists must uphold ethical standards by conducting fact checks and providing balanced reporting. Media organizations must provide objective and exhaustive coverage to ensure people can make informed decisions. We are influencers of public opinion, so we carry additional burden. Sensationalism can distort public perceptions. This can have far-reaching effects on society, distracting the public from pressing problems and undermining the democratic process. Public interest and responsible journalists, they must report truthfully, impartially, ethically, providing content, verifying facts, and presenting multiple perspectives. They should also avoid extraneous harm, respect privacy, and promote the well-being of individual and society. Journalists can uphold truth, transparency, and accountability by adhering to ethical guidelines and code of conduct. Media accountability tells us that media organizations must adopt a more accountable stance to address sensationalism, such as transparent editorial policy and independent fact-checking. Additionally, media literacy programs can be essential in educating the public about media ethics, critical thinking, and the importance of obtaining news from reliable sources. Responsible journalism must focus on accuracy, context, and the public interest to maintain media's credibility. Media organizations must emphasize responsibility, openness, and adherence to ethical standards and promote media literacy among public to enable individuals to distinguish between credible information and sensationalized content. There are a lot of do's and don'ts about ethics. UNESCO has it, some journalists association has it. You can all read it in the paper. I'm stopping here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Arindamda. Rape might have been allowed in journalism, but in academics, it's still a dirty word. And Delhi University has done away with it by rejecting Draupadi, by rejecting Sukhitarani, by rejecting Mahashweta Devi, because rape is still a dirty word in academics, if not in journalism. So yes, we need more people like you, and thank you so much. I would once again request very, very humbly all our speakers to please keep their comments to 5 minutes of your time. I mean, all of us are waiting to hear you, and we would like to hear all of you without anybody leaving. Thank you so much, sir. And we would have liked to hear about another HIMMAT. Arindamda mentioned HIMMAT, and we would have liked to hear HIMMAT Singh ji, IPS officer, ex-IPS officer, retired, but I think he has he's now not online. He has not joined us. There were several scholars today who have not been able to join because of their preoccupations. Madame Marina Pratici, Madame Regina Resta, Madame Dr. Kalpana Purohit and Dr. Veena Singh. In case anybody has of these ladies and gentlemen have joined in through some other phone number which we cannot make out, you are please welcome to address us. Otherwise, I will now go on to our next speaker, Dr. Gianluigi Segalorba. He has been waiting patiently, and I will briefly introduce him. He's from Genoa and was visiting scholar at the universities of Tübingen, of Bern, of Vienna. His first book was created as Splash Notice Ossia, and he is currently well known as the author of the book Semantic and Ontology, published from Bern in 2013. And he currently lives and works in Vienna and is a publisher and writer of numerous scholarly and academic articles. Dr. Gianluigi Segalorba from Genoa, we welcome you, sir. If you could kindly address us briefly with your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation and for the opportunity of expressing my ideas. I would be very short. I would only say something about my positions on ethics. My position on ethics has the beginning point, the belief in an internal division of our soul. This is my principal point. I believe that our soul is divided into a bad component and into a good component. There is a negative component in ourselves. We must be aware of it. We must become aware of it. The negative component in us can be defeated only through the analysis of ourselves. This is the first point, to the knowledge of our nature and through the meditation on our essence and on our nature. The process of education, a long process of education, long road to education is needed to dominate the negative components of our soul. The negative elements in our soul leads us to an attitude, or can lead us to an attitude of hostility against other human beings. It aims to gain the dominance of other people. It is capable of crimes, and it can progressively deteriorate if it is not appropriately held under control. My belief actually derives from the inquiry into the history of humanity, independently of the people, of the historical epoch, of the culture, and so on. We can always, unfortunately, observe in human history wars, massacres, exploitations, violence, and crimes. The fixed point, evil is connected to our nature. There is nothing to do. We may not accuse anybody else than ourselves for the evil events which happen in the world. We are responsible for our deeds. We are guilty of the negative events which happen in the society in human history. But nonetheless, despite the negative aspects which are inherent in our nature, we are not only these negative aspects. These must be taken always into consideration. There is negative points in ourselves and there are positive points in ourselves. We have positive components. We are capable to reach positive elements in ourselves. The difficulty which we have is, in my opinion, my personal opinion, that the negative components are immediately active in our soul. While the positive aspects of our soul need to be cultivated, educated, and formed, they need formation, they need a development. The positive elements of our soul, in other words, do not come along to maturity. The positive elements of our soul will not arise automatically. The positive elements need an appropriate education to be appropriately developed. Therefore, we need now to initiate the process of education, of formation, of ethical meditation, of constant ethical meditation on ourselves, on introspection on ourselves, and self-analysis of ourselves, self-inquiry into ourselves is needed. Nobody can and will do the process of education for us. That is, nobody can substitute us. Nobody can and will substitute us during this process. We are to decide for ourselves whether we want to begin the process of education, and we have full responsibility for the choice. The road to education, to self-knowledge, to the analysis of our nature will be long and difficult. There is nothing to do. There is nothing to be concealed. It will be long and difficult, and it should be constant. A continuous engagement will be necessary and is necessary. Moreover, nobody can ensure that we will be successful on this road. We have no alternative thought but the process of education if we want to put under control the negative components which we have in ourselves. Therefore, the road to reason is possible. The road to reason is can be fulfilled, but it can be fulfilled only with pain and with engagement. So I can conclude here so that I cannot trespass the point. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was so kind of you, Dr. Sekularba, and we were so very much enlightened by your views, by your reflections. Yes, pain, and yes, suffering, and yes, enlightenment all come together in education and ethics. And thank you so much for elaborating on it so beautifully, yet so briefly, and yet you presented the kernel of the shell in such a beautiful manner. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. And Namaskar, sir. And I would now invite our next speaker, who has already been patiently listening to all of us, a very erudite scholar and administrator, Colonel Dalvinder Singh Grewal, who is presently Professor Emeritus of Deshbhagat University, where he was Dean of R&D, and he has been Director Principal and Group Director of a number of engineering colleges, has published more than 400 articles and in journals and newspapers, and his awards include the Best Education Achievers Award from Punjab Government, International Leadership Award API USA 1999, Man of the Year 2000, and several other awards. We wait, Dr. Colonel Grewal, to listen to you and be benefited by your erudite views. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, madam. It's so nice that I have been now invited for this function. It's so good, specifically when we have got an inauguration function that is on International Academy of Ethics. Actually, the FVC, Dr. JERNAIL Singh ANAND has been writing so much about the decadence of ethics. His last, one of the books, Lustrous, which I, of course, reviewed, I found that he was very keen to find out certain solutions for all this decadence. And this institute will certainly provide a way out and further improvement in the systems where we can have better ethical values and systems. Actually, if we consider our family, then our teachers, then of course the society, they are responsible for our better development of the ethical values. But are they doing it? We day by day find the decadence is continuing much more because there is certain things lacking at this stage. Now, as we see that basic fundamentals are at the family level, possibly the mothers don't have time, hence it lacks. Next come the institutions. Teachers are more interested toward their self-development and of course the financial development, and they have not been paying the time which are needed for that. I know that one of my teachers, in fact, one teacher at the National Primary School was so good that he put all his time in teaching us and guiding us, and his values were so ingrained our mind that still we value him and remember him at our height. Actually, that's what type of teachers we need. Now, teachers have got certain responsibilities. I have seen while as a professor and as a principal director and of course dean, that teachers are actually maybe more towards learning books, material, etc., but they are not practically guiding their students towards it. Neither they are becoming an example for them as a ethical forebringer. Now, another problem which is coming up is that teachers have not been taking much interest in ethical values, especially in engineering and other branches. But we then tried out in our university, Punjab Technical University, to start a course in ethical values, which have been now still going on. Because being a builder of society, an education institution is a formal agency providing education to students. So they have to actually set values and also create a discipline among its students, teach them what is good, what is bad, what is evil, and what is the moral duty and obligations, which actually, if they do it practically, if they are more.
So kindly unmute yourself. You have accidentally muted yourself.
Is it okay now?
Yes, yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Shall I start from the beginning then?
No, sir. It just happened for just a second back.
Acha, ठीक है. Being a builder of society, an education institution is a formal agency providing education to students. Students, teachings, teaching and teaching, and the teacher are the key points of this society. And ethics in education is a very broad term that gives learning experience to students, which is fruitful for them to grow very, very ethically and segregate good from bad. But are the teachers doing that? No, we have found no. It can be considered as a means of expanding ethical awareness and understanding motivation to behave and act ethically in the whole world. Actually, what we see is this situation is being created all over the world. It's not only in India or otherwise very close situations. What we find is, and specifically through the news, what we hear is the ethical standards have been not much cared about, which is a tragedy, and we must avoid with a better example from the teacher side. And teachers must focus on providing the right path and guiding to students to make them well-mannered, well-behaved, and develop good attitudes within them. The teacher, as an educated, believing in the worth and dignity of each human being, recognizes the supreme importance of the pursuit of truth, which is what we are lacking now, and devotion to excellence and the nature of the democratic principles. Essential to these goals is the protection of freedom to learn and to teach, and the guarantee of equal educational opportunity of all. The educator accepts the responsibility to adhere to the highest ethical standards, and he must ensure that what he has been paid for or taken on the responsibility, he must get into that. And the desire for the respect and confidence of the colleagues, of students, of parents, and of members of the community provides the incentive to attain in the moral and maintain the highest possible degrees of ethical conduct. Now, if especially in India, our initial teaching used to be from our parents. Our elders used to teach us with the stories. That system is no more existing. We learned our ethical values specifically from grandparents, which we have actually missed. This system has to restart again, and we have to get more interest, especially in our earlier parents, and the system which we started, that sending our elders to the homes outside and not caring them at home has created a very bad impact on the society as a whole. This is where the actual society is to work for and work harder, and they have to become the real teacher in providing this system also. A teacher has got massive responsibility, and to understand his profession, the code of professional ethics delineates that. Now, there needs to be a professional code of conduct. Of course, we have got a professional code of conduct already made by National Institute of Professional Ethics. And I'll not list out, this is a lot of lines about it, time being short. Ethics is a fundamental for building a noble society with good citizens. The teachers play a great role in building them through knowledge of the world as well as the rules of rules of ethics through theoretical as well as practical examples. Teacher being the forebringer has got some significant professional code of ethics for them. A teacher should always be aware about his roles and responsibilities and must respect the privacy of other members of his own school. He must have proper knowledge about students' needs and a deep vision of fulfilling the present needs. Requirement and aspiration of the learners must be kept in mind. She should always show due respect to various spiritual and cultural values, diversity, social justice, democracy, freedom, and the environment. Teachers should show affection, care, and love to students and build good, pious, and respectful relationship with students. he should be honest, dedicated, and reliable towards school and students, and he should maintain cordial and reverential relationship with all the stakeholders of the school. They must try to win trust of his pupil, colleagues, parents, school management, and the public as well. They should also keep them away from the conflict between their professional work and private work, which may affect students' perception toward the social and the teachings. Most important is the teacher who should be moral, upright, and set standards by personal examples. He should observe his students regularly, deeply, and provide guidelines and correct where needed. That's how we can prove our own systems to be better, which are existing at present. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm sure all these insights that you have gained from your years of experience as an administrator, you have culled those experiences and given us a brief gist of what you have learned over so many of the years, dealing with all the stakeholders in the education system and the necessity of ethics in regard to all these stakeholders. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Dr. Kulbhushan Rasta, in case he is present, has logged in by some other device, because I cannot see his name in the attendees list. Dr. Kulbhushan Rasta, are you present, sir? In that case, we would like to listen to you. Then I would now like to invite our next speaker. He is a mechanical engineer by profession, Shri Vinod Khanna, but his passion and first love has always been poetry, and he writes in rhyme and rhythm, which is a fast disappearing genre, as he says. And his book Lamppost was awarded with Award of Excellence as the best book of rhyming poetry in the year 2014 by the Poetry Society of India, Gurgaon. He is a trilingual writer, and he has remained on the panel of editors of the Poetry Society of India, Gurgaon, and he is presently the Vice President of the Readers and Writers Society of India, based in Chandigarh. Welcome, sir, and we would like to very, very briefly hear your views today on this inaugural function. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you so much, and good evening to everybody. I hope I am clearly being listened to.
Audible and visible, sir, clearly. Thank you.
Without going into much ado about the other things, I'll come straight to my talk because of the paucity of time. My talk is about the role of a mother in imbibing ethics. The first few lessons I got in ethics were through simple one-liners painted on the whitewashed walls of the prayer compound in my primary school. Daily, as we gathered for the morning assembly, we could not miss the slogans written there in bold letters. Few of the slogans were like, always speak the truth, respect your parents and teachers, honesty is the best policy, etc. Due to daily exposure, the blue letters on the white walls got printed on my mind as well. But then I realized that these slogans were simply reinforcements of the morals of the stories of ideal sons like Shravan of Ramayana fame, Casablanca, and disciples like Eklavya of Mahabharata fame, related by mother earlier while putting us children to sleep in preschool days. Now, a foundation of ethical behavior was being laid by the mother, albeit unconsciously. On the other hand, there goes a true story of a notorious and dreaded dacoit, sentenced to death. Standing at the gallows, he was asked about his last wish. He said that he wanted to say something to his mother. His mother was brought to him, and he brought his mouth near to her ear to say whatever he wanted to say. But no, he didn't say anything. Rather, he bit hard at the mother's ear, which bled profusely. Upon being asked why he did so, he told that it is she who was responsible for making him a dacoit. Had she slapped me the day when I first brought home his pencil stolen from the bag of the class fellow, and discouraged me from further delinquencies, I would not have been here where I am today. The moral of the story is obvious. Catch them young. Teach ethics when the child is young and has an impressionable mind, which is a prerequisite for imbibing morality. Nobody is a born thief, but once an idealistic young man becomes corrupted by the ways of the big bad world, it becomes almost impossible to retreat. Nevertheless, as they say, it is never too late to mend. The concept of Academy of Ethics is a laudable concept that provides some hope of restoring declining ethical values, even while the society is fast approaching its nadir in as far as morality and ethical behavior is concerned. It is a Herculean task to counter the nihilistic forces that have invaded almost every field, be it commerce, politics, education, medical, or even literature. Horse trading in politics is an open secret. Hospitals prey upon the misery of hapless patients. Private educational entities are nothing more than business houses. The way the rewards and awards are being managed in literary field leaves much to be desired. The moot question is, can we stem the rot? In my humble opinion, charity should begin at home. We as poets and writers can do our bit by sharing inspirational thoughts, exhorting society to adopt morality as the everyday creed. However, it will be like giving shape to the iron which has turned cold. Why not hit the iron when it is hot? Mothers is the first teacher of a child. It is said that even when the child is in the womb, the thought process of the mother impacts its mind. Mythological stories of Abhimanyu and sage Ashtavakra are cases in point. After birth, mother is the child's only companion 24/7, at least during the initial years. If she teaches him on her ethical behavior and demonstrates it with, if she teaches teaches him or her the ethical behavior and demonstrates it with her own actions, it will get imprinted upon the mind of the child like a lithographic print and will last a lifetime. Unfortunately, it is not happening. A mad materialistic race for equality within the genders has snatched mothers from the children. Do you think that children raised in creches or by servants or ayahs can have a grounding in morality? Money matters the most, and that is why working couples have become a norm, even in a conservative society like ours. But then, mind it, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Neglect your children and then be prepared to get squarely neglected by them in your old age. The filial bond will never develop the way it should. Ethics become the causality in such a scenario. I'm not sure that high-sounding phrases and jargon can help foster ethical behavior among the people whose foundation stones were not cemented by the mortar of ethics. I have said all this in whatever way my humble, rustic understanding of the issue guided me. It is for you scholars to evaluate it, berate it, or take it with a proverbial grain of salt. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you once again for proving that, yes, we women are the pillars of society. Women as mothers in a variety of roles, I believe, are very much the pillars of society so far as ethics are concerned. So yes, more power to us and more power to you, sir. Thank you. And thank you, sir. And I can see another versatile poet from my city, Shri Tariq Muhammad, who writes under the pseudonym of M. Tariq, bilingual author and poet from Calcutta. And he's known for his romantic poetry, poetic storytelling. Indeed, we are in love with his shairi, his way of reciting poems. And he's the author of Mumtaz, The Making of the Taj Mahal. Also a collection of short stories, which he has written in poetical form. And he's a Probashi Bangali, what we say, a diasporic Bengali person, though he's not Bengali by language totally, but somebody who traverses to and fro from America to Bengal and back and forth, delighting us with his company at various poetry festivals. And his most recent work, which is nearing completion, is The El Dorado That Was India, which is about the history of India. Welcome, Tariq ji, and we are waiting to listen to your very, very brief comments today. I'm sorry for the paucity of time. Welcome, sir. Sir, unmute yourself, Tariq ji. Tariq ji, kindly unmute yourself. If the technical person can do something to unmute him. Sir, please unmute yourself, Tariq ji. We cannot hear you. Tariq, sir, kindly unmute yourself, sir. We cannot hear you, sir. Kindly unmute yourself, sir.
Yes.
Yes, you're audible. Audible and visible, sir. Go ahead.
Well, আমি তো বাংলা বলি, ভালোই বাংলা বলি, এরকম না থাকা বাংলা বলতে পারি না। That's for you, Mandakini. I want to thank Dr. General Anand for giving me this opportunity, but I am not going to speak about ethics or anything because I'm just a layman. I'm a poet. I love to write poetry, and Mandakini ji has very nicely said that I write romantic poetry and any other genres also. Recently, I've been writing a lot of political poetry also. But my thanks goes to Dr. JERNAIL Anand for awakening me, in me once again, to write. Yes, about ethics, I have a little, the worst among all the immoral in us is greed. And if we can eliminate greed from our lives, I think our lives will return to basic principles, morality, and that's all I have to say. And I thank everyone and all the participants in this wonderful program. And I congratulate Doctor that in this immoral world, he has tried to create a little corner of his, and he has included all of us in his Academy of Ethics. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We were looking to hearing a little more from you, maybe one of your shairis even. And we are surely waiting to hear your political poetry. That must be great. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. I could see Rajbabu Gandham.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I could see Rajbabu Gandham, sir, there just a few moments back, but I can't see him anymore. Rajbabu, sir, are you there? Rajbabu Gandham, sir? I don't think he's there, our last speaker today, because Dr. Sijo Joseph Chenalil has not been able to join us, or has he, from some other mobile, which is unnamed. Dr. Sijo Joseph, are you present, sir? Please respond in case you are. I don't think he's present. In that case, I would now
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Mandakini.
I'm so sorry. Could we have Rajbabu Gandham, sir, in case he's joined us from some other device? I could see him a little back. A little time back, he was still there. Dr. Rajbabu, Rajbabu Gandham, sir, are you there? In that case, sir, should we move on now to the last segment of the vote of thanks?
Yeah, if he's not there, Sijo Joseph is not there, I think.
No, Joseph, sir, is also, I'm sorry, I was muted. I did announce his name, but I was muted. Sijo Joseph, sir, has also not joined in case he has joined in from some other mobile, then I would request Dr. Sijo Joseph, sir, are you there? Are you present, sir? No, I don't think so. In that case, I would request Dr. PARNEET JAGGI, a very erudite scholar, associate professor of English in Rajasthan, India.
Professor, Mandakini, she is professor now.
Yes, sir. She's okay. I was reading from earlier bios. So she has 4 collections of poems in English, 2 research books to her credit. Again, correct me, Dr. Jaggi, if I'm going wrong somewhere. Her historical fiction.
We don't need that. Let's be just ethical.
She has become professor.
No, we don't need that introduction.
So The Call of the Citadel 2020 is well acclaimed, her recent historical fiction, and we look more to many, many works from her. Her name appears in the directory of writers in America's famous magazine, Poets and Writers. And she is associate editor, if I'm still correct, of International Journal of Education and English Literature from Montreal, Canada. One of the many hats she wears, and I now invite this multifaceted and multi-talented personality to deliver the vote of thanks for today's evening. Dr. Jaggi, all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Mandakini. I thought I was just a friend to all. This all is a bonus. Candies on the ice cream. I don't need that.
And my disclosure is I'm not doctor.
No, that doesn't matter. It's a party of friends today talking on ethical issues and wanting to do something better for the society and the self. And brimming with so many existential and ethical questions right now. So I take this opportunity to thank all the wonderful members of the audience in the very first place, because without the audience, I mean, who would be talking to? We would be talking to, again, AI. So without the audience, we won't have the listeners. So thank you for being such a patient, such a wonderful audience. Then a special thanks to our keynote speaker, Dr. RAWLE, joining us from Canada, Toronto. All the other speakers, I might not be able to take all the names because it's too late for now. And all the erudite scholars who have put in their comments, their experiences, their rich illustrations from literature, from history, from politics, and from economic backgrounds, and everything that has been set on stage has been so contemplative, so mature, so wise, that this is actually a conference, an inaugural function, the purpose of which was to collect all the wisdom that our thinkers, our scholars who are experienced, they have, so that we can assort things and we can put them together in a compendium and make out some practical solutions, some practical resolutions out of these wise experiences. So I take this opportunity to thank all the members of the organizing team, Dr. JERNAIL Singh Anand as a mentor, as a guide, as a director, president of International Academy of Ethics, Dr. Molly Joseph. Special thanks to the technical team, Dr. RANDHIR Gautam, Dr. Mukesh Grover, Kiran Grover, without whom this wouldn't have been possible. Special thanks to media partners, the Internal News, Police Free Press Greece, Different Truths. And once again, a special thanks to speakers as well as listeners for those innumerable, uncountable questions as well as answers that have really enriched us in this short, brief span of 3 hours this evening, this Sunday evening. Thank you all for being there.
And to Mandakini and Parneet both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your stamina.
Thank you.
It has been really testing for all of us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Peace and love to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Maya is there or she has left?
She's left.
Okay.